Kickoff end over end. Berrios gets it just inside the end zone. He's got some steam. He's got a hole past the 30. He is off to the races. Braxton Berrios. Nobody in front of him. Berrios is going to score. Braxton Berrios. No flags on the play.
I woke up this morning, got myself done. Mama always said I'd be there.
Play action, bootleg out to the right. He's got room to run. Setting up, looking downfield. He's going to heave a bomb for Corey Davis at the goal line. Into the end zone. He's got it! That's a Jet touchdown! Zach Wilson unloads from 53 yards to Corey Davis. And the Jets have the lead back.
Never told about right and wrong, but I'm looking good, baby. I believe it, I'm feeling fine. I was born under a bad sign, blue moon in my eyes, so help me now. I got a blue moon in my eyes, Dwayne.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Jet Lounge Monday morning takeoff with Justin and Benny. We got a little bit of preseason post review. Going over recap the game from yesterday, and the final shape and what we get things that happened with the 53-man roster, and just talk about how training camp went, how we're in the clear with some of these injuries most likely, except for the Zach one. Some other ones we'll talk about, but if you want to come up, be a speaker, raise your hand like we do, and I'll get you right up. Just want to get to the announcements, and then we'll say good morning to everybody in the room. So let's see. So I put up top the snap counts from Rich Cimini. He just posted it. It'd be something that'd be good to look at to see who's getting the snaps during yesterday's game, because that's probably the one that they're going to go with for the guys that are on the bubble. So those are the snap counts up there if you want to take a look at it. Also, I put the link tree up there for the Jet Lounge for our website, the shop, our Twitter. Obviously, you guys know where that is. Our YouTube channel. Subscribe and like to that. Facebook, follow. Instagram, follow. In the Discord, you should join up. We're doing cool stuff with giveaways, watch shows, doing all types of stuff over there. If you have any questions about it, I'll reach out to Pat Dunn or myself, and I'll get you some information. Gonna have some fantasy football going on over there as well as over here. Happy for the league, the Jet Lounge fantasy. Everything's starting. Football season's here, man. Yesterday was a Sunday with football at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It just felt real. It was good. Also, in the Jumbotron 2, we released another shirt. This one is the no-fly zone. It looks like our defensive backs are going to shut them down. So check out that one up there, and we'll have more to come soon. So right now I'm going to unmute everybody, and if you want to be a speaker, just come on up. So good morning. How you feeling, Benny?
Good morning. Good morning. What's going on, guys?
My parents just came up to visit from Florida, so I got a house full. They're probably going to do breakfast today, so I'm going to talk Jets while they go eat breakfast. Good morning, Petey.
Morning, bro. Morning, Benny. Happy, Teddy.
Yeah, man. So we have a guest coming on about 9 o'clock today. He was with the ESPN. With Heavy.com. Mike Obermuller. Talked to him a few times. He's going to be on around 9. So he's got some good articles. I'm going to try to post them up to the top too, so you guys can be familiar with his stuff. If you're not following him, check him out. He writes some good stuff. I follow him on Facebook, and that's where I saw some articles. And I came over to Twitter, and I'm like, yeah, he's on here too. Let me reach out. So he'll be on at 9. Just good insight with him. So anybody who was here at the game yesterday, we'll talk about who saw. I think Happy was there with Sack, and Sack was over there. So I want to see what you guys saw at the game, and then we'll talk about what we saw on TV. If you want to do that, Happy? He might be at work.
No, I was just brushing my teeth. Sorry. Give me 2 seconds.
All right. Joe, go ahead. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning. I didn't see the game yesterday. I was playing golf, and actually I was playing golf with Kenny and Joe Beningo. what a threesome. I'm watching it this morning, before I go to work. I'm watching it, and I was like, I watched the first half, and it's confusing, man, because, I've been ripping White. I was all over White. I thought Mike White was, last year after that game he had, I was like, give him the chance. And then I kind of got sour on him. I realized he's only capable of so much. But then I'm watching this right before the half, and I'm like, holy shit, he threw some fucking zip balls in there. The touchdown to Smith, the pass to Mims, the pass to the Cager. I mean, those balls were zipped in there. I mean, I thought he had like no arm. But I mean, I'm saying he was 10 of 13 for 142 yards and 2 touchdowns in one quarter. That was pretty. I mean, I understand it's against it's against the second and third team, but I'm just saying. I mean, he's a capable guy. If we need, if Flacco, was bad and they wanted to bench him, it's just frustrating. But then you see Strevler, and I'm going to watch that later, the second half, and see. And I know he played well too. So, were you there, Justin, or no, at the game?
I wasn't there. I was watching in my living room. I think Happy was there with Zach and
But I mean, I know the guys who I know can't stand, who think Mike White's the worst player in the history of football. You got to admit, Happy, he looked pretty good there right before the half. He made some nice. I mean, he was those were tight spirals he threw. I mean, some of those passes. I mean, they were
Yeah. He finished the game 13-17, 170 with 2 touchdowns.
I mean, he's not the worst quarterback in the world.
Flacco had 2. Flacco didn't put up any points, and he had two turnovers. So when you're looking at night and day compared to what happened.
They weren't all taking dunks either, the ones that Mike White threw. Mike White threw some like 20, 30 yards down the line to Mims, and they were on a rope, some of those passes. It wasn't like they were fluttered to him. I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, and I'm the first. I jumped off his bandwagon, this year because I said, you know what? He's only capable of so much. Well, he can't get. He's a dick and dunker. But I'm just saying. I was impressed. I mean, it made me feel like, wow, that's Mike White. I mean, I was,
Yeah, I felt the same way. Like he was doing a lot of outs to Mims. Like you said, they were like on a rope. It's some good looking passes. And then Strevler comes in and does it again and makes our job even harder as fans to pick who we like better. So yeah, Happy, go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously to start with the first team with Flacco, and I mean, there that one drive where Michael Carter fumbled. I mean, they were moving the ball. They were moving the ball well. It's just Michael Carter fumbled the ball. You got to correct these mistakes because that drive definitely could have turned into points. They were across the 50 on that play, and he fumbled. You got to hang on to the ball, and you got to correct that because we got to win the turnover battle this year in a lot of these games against a lot of these teams that we're playing. So not turning the ball over and winning the turnover battle is key. Looking at the Flacco interception. You could kind of see what he was trying to do. He scrambled right. Michael Carter was trailing him and following him. But I don't know if he didn't see the linebacker standing right there. I don't know what he was looking at, but, it looked worse than it was. I think he was trying, he's definitely trying to get it to Carter, but maybe he didn't see the linebacker. I don't know. But, yeah, it was, another bad turnover that resulted in the pick six. Flacco's a veteran, so that he's going to, hopefully we don't see this, week one. If he is definitely a starting quarterback, I know more than likely he probably is going to start. And, Zach is going to, take that first week off to, rest his knee. But other than that, Mike White came out, he had a good game, nice touchdown to Jeff Smith, couple running backs again that did well. Again, Tevin Coleman, there was people calling out to cut him, but Tevin Coleman still got some left in the tank, and he showed that again yesterday as well. And again, you want a veteran like that in your locker room that has young running backs like Brees and Michael Carter. You would like a veteran like that still has it in the tank and, can go out there and get you a couple of yards. Again, Bam Knight had a nice run, a couple good plays as well. I think Bam Knight should make the team, and goodbye Ty Johnson and LaMichael Pirine. Good luck on another team. And what else could you say about Chris Strevler? It's a great story. He's come out there every single preseason game. We've been down, and he's led us to a comeback victory. For a guy who's played in the CFL, I think he's played pretty well. He had one bad throw, which ended up being a pass interference, but nice ball to Denzel Mims, even better catch by Mims, and then another game winner to Calvin Jackson. So defensively, in our first team defense, I think even though the Giants didn't really have their starters, I think played well. Really, I don't know what's going on with the quarterbacks, or maybe they're not. Maybe they're scheming in a different way. No one's really throwing to Sauce Gardner, so I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I know the regular season, I'm sure teams are going to test them, but in the preseason, no one really tested Sauce really much. So And, Michael Clemens, a legal hit, vicious hit on Tyrod. I'm glad he's all right. But Michael Clemens is going to be a force to be reckoned with. And same thing with Kawan Alexander. Huge hit as well. And again, lesson learned. Again, this team is young. I forget. I don't know who the player was. He tried to pick it up and run for a touchdown. I think he should have just dove on it, and we could have got the turnover instead. But hey, overall defense looked good. First team, so that's good to see because I know myself, Benny, a couple of us were jumping down Ulbricht's throat with our, couple of our first team guys out there, and we looked like complete garbage. So it's good to. Again, it was just Tyrod Taylor. I think Kenny Galladay was out there and a couple other guys, but it was good to see that our starters, for the most part, defensively, played well.
Yeah, Michael Carter in the first quarter he had a sack and an interception. So, I'd like that. Get
Kid's
into
good.
the backfield. So, yeah,
Michael Carter. When we broke down our roster, Justin. Not a lot of people always brought that name up, and he's like he was a very underrated player last year, and he's a good nickel corner.
Yeah,
so,
no, he's good. He's gonna be good in the slot for us, and coming off the edge and getting into the quarterback too. He was good with that last year as well. So I'm a big fan of MC2. Like I said before, I was hoping for bigger things from Bryce Hall, but after seeing what he did the first 2 games, I'm like, all right, let him just stay in the sideline in case somebody gets hurt. But yeah, Michael Carter was big in the slot. I liked it. But we're going to keep the hands going. Petey, good morning.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
I mean, I was at the game too. What impressed me about the offense was, again, Flacco fired a couple of balls to Conklin. He had a one rip, man. That was Conklin had. I think it was for about, I forget how many yards, but it was just a breath of fresh air to see a tight end actually get a catch, over 10 yards, on a rip. Like we haven't seen Ryan Griffin or any of them get that. And, Flacco missed a lot of throws though. It seemed like to me he was rusty. He had Uzama open, streaking down the sideline. I think he missed somebody on the other sideline. And, the thing that impressed me the most was the first drive on the defense, the pass rush. They were relentless. Jermaine Johnson got in. Who else? Quinnen Williams got in. Carl Lawson manhandled somebody, on that Quinnen Williams sack. So that was nice to see. And, I've always been a Michael Carter II fan too, but that guy can play and he's underrated. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I think he sacked Brady last year too in the Bucs game, if I'm not mistaken.
No, yeah, he did. He did.
So, there's some concerns. I got a show tonight that I want to get into, but I'm concerned about the running. The running, the blocking for the running game. I'm a little concerned with that. I know it's early; it's their first game. Hopefully they figure it out, but. Couple of Giants were in the backfield, they stopped them on the 3rd and 1. So I don't want to get too negative. It's preseason, Calvin Jackson's a nice surprise. That's nice. I'd like to see him make the team. I really do. And somebody else who's impressed me is that guy Bradley.
I was going to bring him up. He was in the backfield a lot, Bradley.
Yeah, and I mean he was. The one thing that did piss me off though is every time it just seems like the Jets' luck. Every time they force a fumble, they never recover it. And it happened again yesterday. We need to. I know the guy wanted to make a play, but we got to recover those. Those things. But there's a lot of other stuff I want to talk about, but. I'll save that for later, but good show as always, guys. Appreciate you guys, the Jet Lounge, and everybody. So,
hey, can I ask PD a question real fast?
Yeah, gotcha.
Yo,
hey, Pete, what's going on, bro?
Yo, Joe, what's up, brother?
You were at the game. I've been watching it this morning. I got up early. I was watching the first half. I mean, how do you, with Flacco, was hard to tell because he was only in there for a couple series, and you really didn't get a rhythm going, but. Where do you see them going with the third QB? Do you think they keep White or they
Mike
cut
White?
You think they keep White?
Yeah.
And they cut Strebler or put him on the practice squad, I guess.
Well, they're going to have to cut him. I don't know if you have to cut somebody first, or can you designate? I don't know. I can't lie. I don't want to say, like, can you do that? I don't know if you could
I
designate
think you have to
people
clear
right away.
waivers. If you're sent to a practice squad, you have to clear waivers first.
Right. So, but Joe, I agree with you real quick. I mean, Mims
White
was
looked good.
open.
Did he look good?
He was throwing those slants. He had that. I mean, listen, everybody's going to say, I know it's against second, but the Giants, Blake Martinez was in. I saw him having reps.
Yeah. I was impressed
Some of
with
the
his
guys
zip.
were in. So
I was impressed how quick he was getting the ball, and he was zipping those. Those are the ones that those are the ones I want Zach to. If Zach can make those throws that Mike White made late in that first half, I know it's second. Then I'd be happy. Then I'd say we got our quarterback. Those are the ones that Zach's had to stand in the pocket and make that 10, 15 yard that out, the out throw, the inward route, the one across the middle. That's the ones that make.
Joe, the ones Flacco missed real quick. That's where I think Zach, throws those floater rainbows and he just drops them in like that. Zach, I think, can do well on. Flacco missed some throws yesterday, so Zach has that touch where he can rainbow to throw in, and it doesn't look like it's going to get to him, and it does. But I just think with reps, Flacco will get it, but I'm not sure, man. He missed some throws yesterday, so I don't want to be negative, but that's my take on that.
Yeah, and I want to talk about I don't know, the defense a little bit. Obviously, for a lot of us, our defense was our biggest concern, with Jeff being the question mark because the talent is there. We acquired a lot of talent. I like what I seen from Carl Lawson. I know he didn't play that much, but you seen that explosiveness where he was in the backfield. He almost had a sack on Tyrod before Tyrod completely spinned out on him, but he got in the backfield pretty quick. You seen that explosiveness. JJ almost had a sack, which is promising. I know we're all focused on Clemens, rightfully so, because Clemens' motor is insane. But JJ started to get a little bit of pressure getting that rhythm. But all in all, with that defense as a whole, what jumps out to me is the the pure size, physicality, and speed that we have on that defense. I feel like there was plenty of times yesterday where guys were hitting to create game-changing plays. Hence what Quan Alexander did. Hence what Michael Carter did. Hence what Clemens did. These guys are flying around and actually hitting guys, which is great to see because obviously the past two preseason games, everything was very bland. We were allowing teams to kind of do whatever the hell they wanted to do. But I like the step forward we took and getting pressure, showing that aggressiveness. And obviously we didn't show too much, but I like what our defensive line, first, second, third team, we're all proving that our defensive line is where we're going to win and lose games. So I like what I saw from our defensive line for sure. And Quentin played extremely, extremely well.
Yeah, like I said, the first two games, when we had our starters, so quote unquote, out there against the Falcons and the Eagles, I'm screaming for Ulbrich. I'm like, what is going on? His scheme looks horrible. But actually having the talent out there, I think I did see a big difference. Maybe they're just not being so vanilla because it's the last game and trying to try a couple different things. But yeah, Lawson did definitely look like he was getting in the back. I liked it. But yeah, John Franklin Myers was back there. We got some, I was happy with Dwayne Brown on the offensive side. The line, we've been hooting and hollering for the offensive line and defensive line, players closer to the ball winning games. Those were the ones that were looking good. I want to get the running offense off to a better start. I mean, 2.5 yards of carry with these guys. We got to at least. I want 4. So, I don't know. Keep the hands up, Mark. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Justin, Benny. Good morning, PD. Happy. How you guys doing?
Good morning.
Yeah, I think. I mean, they're getting down to the 53, and I agree with Benny about the defense. I mean, I wanted to see identity out of this defense, and I feel like that's going to start to come together. Where you're going to have front 4 rushing the quarterback, and then you're going to have if they catch the ball in bounds, this team's going to make you pay for it. Like that's what I want to see all year long. Great turnovers, big hits, statement play. Because the defense is going to have a heavy load on their shoulders. Because again, Zach Wilson in year 2, he's going to need that defense to create more possessions, to provide opportunity, field position, the rest of it. But with regard to the offense, man, I mean, This is the thing, man. Mike White versus Strevler. Like, the truth is, if I look at Zach, because Zach is the most important piece on this team, period. Right? The most important piece we needed to see in the preseason wasn't on the field. And these are valuable reps, both on the field and in the joint practices. Arguably, those are even more important reps. And when I think about the backup quarterback room, right, a backup quarterback has a couple roles, right? It's not just can you get in there and win a game or two while the starter's on the bench, but also can you help that starter get ready? From comments in the quarterback room, comments on the sideline, telling them what you see. So that's the reason, thinking about it that way, that's the reason why, man, I would love for Strevler to make the team, but I don't think he does. He's the player I want to make the team the most that I don't think will make the team.
Yeah, I mean, what else does this guy got to do? And I mean, he didn't come in after Flacco. If he came in after Flacco, we'd all know who the answer is. But the fact that White came in as a backup because Flacco's starting, that tells me he's going to be 3. The guy did everything he was supposed to do. Come back and win. He was he wasn't turning the ball over too much. He had a great preseason. What else does he have to do? I mean, him and Calvin Jackson, those 2 guys are catching game-winning touchdowns and winning the games for us against, threes, but they're doing their job, having good practices and winning games and playing well in the preseason. But unfortunately, the way the roster breaks down, they're not going to make the team. The wide receiver, you probably carry 6 receivers. You think you got Corey Davis, Elijah Moore, Berrios, Wilson, Jeff Smith, and now we're in this tough situation with Denzel Mims. Guy, he had 107 yards or 7 receptions yesterday with a touchdown. If he's not traded, you ain't cutting him. So he's got to make the 53-man roster. So now what are they going to do? They're going to carry a 7th receiver to keep Calvin Jackson? That's where things get a little tough with that. But keep going with the hands. We'll go to John B, then Justin, then Petty. Go ahead, John. Good morning.
Good morning. All the way from the UK here.
Good morning, man. Welcome over here. We're nice and early. I'm sure you guys are ready for your lunchtime.
Yeah, it's about 1:30 in the afternoon here.
There you go.
I'm just the quick one. There's loads of people within the UK community saying that we should actually cut Flacco and go forward with Strevler and White. I don't know what your guys' opinions are on that. But on the defensive side of the ball, Clemens is a scary guy, and he's going to get lots of sacks.
Yeah. To cover your first point, I think rolling with Mike White and Strevler and cutting Joe Flacco. I don't know. We don't know how long Zach Wilson is out, but you're kind of punching Zach Wilson in the face because you know how heavily Zach Wilson relies on Joe Flacco for all the knowledge that he brings. I know everyone is turned off of Flacco out of nowhere. He's been having a fantastic camp. We've been pumping his head up a little bit for the past few weeks because he's been dicing, doing all these great things. And he threw that one ugly pick. Granted, it was an ugly pick. But I think in a regular season, that's not a type of throw that he ends up forcing or anything like that. You start Mike White, you're losing to Baltimore. Starting Strevler, you're losing to Baltimore. I don't care if you start Mike White against Cleveland. Cleveland has a good defense, and Myles Garrett's going to be rushing on their throat. You lose that game. You're completely punting on the first game. That's not the smartest idea. Joe Flacco, and you've seen it in that first drive before Michael Carter fumbled. He was moving the ball efficiently. He was getting the ball out of his hands, making the quick reads. And I know Mike White did the same, but I like what I've seen from Joe Flacco. He missed, Petey alluded to it. He missed a throw here, a throw there. But this is his first time getting live reps. And God knows how long. I think he's going to be fine. But for God's sake, we should not cut Joe Flacco.
Can I jump in real quick, Justin?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think people look at the stat, and I believe he's 0-5 as a Jets starting quarterback.
I think he's lost his last 7 starts.
Yeah, I think we need to kind of eliminate that Adam Gase year because again, different coaching staff, different scheme, different roster. Last year, he played pretty well against Miami. He actually, he had a very good game against Miami. I think he put us in a really good position to win. It's just the defense, stunk it up. He kept us in the football game, and we're not cutting Flacco. Flacco's starting week 1 if Zach is not ready. That's all.
Yeah,
but I just think we need to eliminate the Adam Gase statistics because just a completely different situation.
Yeah, I don't think Flacco's going anywhere. He's been pretty much anointed as the first start as the QB2 and starting week 1 if Zach isn't ready. Now his game plan at this point, it just wouldn't make sense. Taking all the reps away from whoever is going to be starting. It could have been taking those reps with the first team while Zach was down. All right, let's keep the hands going. Let's go with Justin, Petty, and Joe. So go ahead, Justin. Oh, wait, hold on 1 second. John, you had a second part of that question. I don't mean to cut you off. What was the second part of that question?
What about Clemens?
Yeah, it was just about Clemens.
Oh, about Clemens. Yeah, I mean, he when I saw him in the green and white scrimmage, he walked on the field. I looked over to Anthony, and I'm like, "Is that Clemens? That looks like it was me hanging out with my 8-year-old son. This guy's my monster." And he was just in the backfield, pushing the guys right in front of him over. Didn't have to swim. Didn't have to swipe. He was just manhandling them, and he was doing the same last week. So I'm excited having fresh legs on that line. There's a lot of guys that are going to get cut, and we still have a lot of talent on that line. So. Yeah, I'm excited for him, and I think you're right though with the sack numbers. The opportunity he gets, he's going to take them, especially with the guy who's in front of him that might already be tired from going against Lawson or JFM or Quinnen all day.
Thanks,
Jeff. Thanks, John. Justin.
Good morning, guys. Good morning, Justin, Benny,
Good
Petey,
morning,
the rest of the crew. The one thing that nobody has been talking about, I don't know, I just got on a little while ago, but Sauce Gardner, man, I can't even think about the last time a corner came on and had this much of an influence on another teams that they don't even want to throw to his side, which is freaking ridiculous.
Love it.
I mean, it's insane. It's insane, and has for the backup quarterback, man, I think we carry 3 going into this week, maybe. I don't think we cut any of them just yet. I don't want to see that third string backup leave. I think he's better than White, hands down. He had just 1 quarter. White had 2, and he produces touchdowns. I mean, he produces touchdowns, but he also produces energy. Like going into the last quarter, I was like, "Oh yeah, we won this." Like it's like you get that feeling from this kid. Like we never know what could happen. As of right now, this is Zach Wilson's team. It will always be Zach Wilson's team. I don't care if we trade Mims, and I don't care if we trade White. I mean, I'm all for it. I still gonna stick with 10-7. And the rest of you guys' teams that are out there, you guys got problems. We're coming.
Let's
That's
go,
all I gotta say.
Love it. Yeah, I mean, I Sauce Gardner. I mean, he officially won the quarterback battle. I mean, we know I think we all pretty much knew that, but it's official now out there. So he will be starting. Yeah, but like as far as keeping that fourth quarterback, it's tough because there's a lot of deep positions. You're looking at guys who you would say, they need to make the team over here. Calvin Jackson. I mean, Willie Parks, did he do enough now for safety? Beat out guys like Ashton Davis, Denzel Mims, like Jackson. Then you have, Brandon Eichels, Rashard Wildgoose. So these guys are all going to get cut to keep a spot for a fourth quarterback. That's where it gets tough because you're going from 70 or 60 something to 53. It's a big cut. 80 something to 53 it was, or whatever. That was last cut. I forget the exact numbers, but then you have guys like that are going to make the team, like Bradley at 9. He showed up. Jonathan Marshall's. These guys' defensive line. There's guys on that line. You're just like, man, they can't cut him. They can't cut him. To keep a fourth quarterback, that makes it even harder. Offensive line as well. But keep the hands up. Petty, then Joe. Go ahead, Petty.
Yeah,
How's
just
everybody doing?
Mike is in here. Mike is in here, Justin. Just saying.
Mike's in here. All right, Petty, go ahead. You go ahead while I bring a mic up. Go ahead, and then while put Mike up. Go ahead, Petty.
Okay, the one person that I noticed very, very carefully was Breece Hall and his ability to block during passing. There was a play to Braxton Berrios that led to a first down that was only made possible by Breece Hall basically just catching one of these, catching an outside blitzer and preventing him from getting to Flacco. It was an amazing play, and it just made me feel like Brees Hall should be the number one running back sooner rather than later. No disrespect to Mike Carter, but I don't see Mike Carter really doing that. I don't think he's got the frame to be able to handle like blocking the way Brees Hall does. I just noticed that, and then like Michael Clemens is like nobody thought that Michael Clemens would be their favorite draft pick coming out of the draft, but here we are. Everybody loves him, and for good reason. The guy just is a nightmare to everybody who he goes up against. It doesn't matter who it is, even if it's his own teammates or not. And I just can't wait to see what he does.
Yeah, sorry about that. My mic was muted. I'm trying to get Mike up here. Mike, if you're seeing the accept the invite to speak in your left-hand corner, if you just click on it and accept, and you'll be able to be heard. We'll keep Joey. Go ahead. I'll get back to that question while I was setting up there, Petty. But go ahead, Joey.
Watching Strevler, with the energy he brings, like Justin said, which is true. I mean, you feel like when he's back there, he's somehow or another, he's going to get it done. Like, however, if he has to run, just making throws on the run, just creating plays. I love his imagination. He's got really good vision too. I mean, you wonder how these guys bounce around. They don't make it, but I mean, I think he won a Grey Cup in Canada, if I'm not mistaken, in the CFL. But and then what you saw from White yesterday, and you combine those two together, I said, I would be doing handstands if Zach could play like that week after week. And I understand it's not against the 85 Bears. They're going against those two guys yesterday. But I'm saying is that the throws that were made, we saw Zach in just that one drive he played or two drives he played. I mean, he overthrows Wilson by a mile. He throws the pick. And that's the part which makes me so apprehensive with him. And I know everybody loves him and there's annoyed him, the golden child. I got to see him, man. I got to see him make throws like Strevler, make plays like him, make throws like White did yesterday. That's what I got to see, man. I got to see that over a consistent period of time and staying healthy. That's the part that's why this year is so important, man. He's got to play every game if he can, because we got to know if we got the right guy, Justin. We got to know this is the guy that for the next 10, 12 years is our quarterback. And I don't think we're going to need 4 years to find out. I think if he plays this year 15 games or 16 games, we're going to know, right or wrong, right, that either he is our quarterback or he's not our quarterback. I mean, now some people might say, well, you got to give a quarterback 3 years. But I'm saying is I don't think it's going to, I don't really think that, I'm hoping that they know it's their quarterback, that he's the right guy. But I'm just saying that, that's why it's imperative that he plays every game he can for the Jets, regardless. Look, it's as much as I'm worried. Wins and losses mean everything in playoffs and everything else. The most important thing is that we got the right guy, man. Because like you said, if you don't got quarterback, you got nothing. You got to have a quarterback. So I mean, sure, we know Flacco could go in there and play a couple games here and there, win a couple games. Mike White possibly, even Strevler. But we got to know that we have the franchise, and if not, then all bets are off. Then it's back to the drawing board again, and who knows what. So I'm just saying. I mean, I want to see Zach. I want to see Zach Wilson come in the game, make those throws, those seamless throws that we just talked about earlier. That we saw Strevler make late in the game. That we saw Mike White make. Those are the ones I want to see him. I mean, I know he can make the great throws, running outside, throwing it 60 yards in the air down the field, but I want to see him stand in the pocket and just look off his guys and make those throws to the tight end, the seam routes, the out routes. You know what I'm saying? The ball, not throwing it over Garrett Wilson's head by a foot. I'm talking about hitting him in stride, putting the ball where it is, across the middle. That's the thing. I mean, I know you guys love Zach Wilson. Like I said, I'm still apprehensive with him because I want to see him do this over a 15, 17 game season. I got to see. I don't know if he can. And I know everybody's going to rip me because I said that. God forbid I said that. Oh my God, he's the golden child. Leave him alone. You guys will be ripping him too by the end of the year if he stinks this year. I'm just saying. You know it, and I know it. I'm just saying.
Can I rebuttal that?
Go ahead.
Yeah, then go ahead, and then we got Mike coming up. So go ahead.
Hey, hi Joe.
What's up?
How you doing, Joe?
I know you love him. He's perfect. He's the golden child. I know.
It's not about him being the golden child. It's that there's nothing better on our team at quarterback at this moment. Our backup fourth string looks better than Flacco and White. So it's like, oh man, we see what can happen, but here's the difference.
Did you watch Mike White
Whether-
yesterday in the second quarter? By the way, did he look bad?
Yeah,
did
I
he look like?
wasn't- I
Did he
wa-
look
I
like he couldn't
wasn't
throw the
impressed.
football yesterday? I'm asking you. He
Yeah,
was zipping him in
no,
there like on a rope.
I wasn't impressed. I'm gonna tell you why. You know
Okay.
why? Here's the reason why I wasn't impressed.
Because you don't like him. That's why,
Because-
bro. You don't like the guy.
It's
You
not
hate him.
about not liking him. It's that he's a check down quarterback.
He's
That's
bro, I
the
just
one.
watched another pass. I'm watching the game right now. We talked to Mims, 25 yards over the middle. He hit Mims
Hey,
in stride. I want to see Zach make those throws.
Tell
Those
me-
20
tell me.
yards over the middle. Perfect. Look at
Can
that
you-
pass. Right to
You
Mims,
know
right in
why?
his gut.
You know why he's throwing those passes to Mims? Because we need to get rid of him. Why we showcase Mims? Why are we showcasing him? But in the real game, when it's really like really counts, Mike White is not the answer, Joe. Sorry.
I'm not
Mike
saying
White
he
is
is.
not
I'm
the
just
answer.
saying I want to see Zach Wilson make these consistent throws, not miss guys, because his accuracy is not the greatest. We know that. It's not. I mean, he does miss
Well,
guys.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm gonna cut you guys off. We got to introduce our guest here. We got Mike Obermuller. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. He's a digital reporter with Heavy on Sports. I reached out to him the other day, and he'd love to come in and speak with you guys here in the Jet Lounge. So, good morning, Mike. How are you? Bottom left, click the microphone, unmute your microphone, and you should be able to hear you. Benny, are you hearing me?
Yeah, I hear you, bro.
We'll get Mike once Mike can talk. We'll have him speak with you guys. But if Mike in the bottom left, there's a microphone. If you could click on it, where it says Mike is on, click on that, or it'll be muted like you are right now. Hopefully that cures it. He's having a little bit of issue with Twitter getting up here before. All right, once we can get that figured out, we got the hands up. Let's go over to Mike.
What's going on, fellas? Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on the safety position, like on the whole on LaMarcus Joyner. I haven't really been like overly impressed. But one guy that I've been really I like what I'm seeing from him in the preseason is Parks, Will Parks. I think he's balling. I mean, I think he's making those good hits. I think, and I just think that he should, maybe he should get the starting out of me. I don't know what you guys think about that.
I think I'm good, and I agree with that. It's Mike right here.
All right.
Sorry to jump in.
That's good. We had some Twitter obstacles, so we'll let you answer that question. We'll get you started. Go ahead, Mike. Thanks for coming in today. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here. I'm trying to do a little more of these things now. Just try and connect with the fan base a little bit. I love Parks personally. He's been impressing me from basically day one of camp. He just always seems like he's in the right position on the field. That's an underrated thing with him. One of the main issues with our defense last year was the screen game and the run game, obviously. Two huge issues, I should say. And safeties are important for both of those because they can come up, especially the way Saleh runs his defense, they can come up and they can provide that impact play. And Will Parks, just from the get-go, has been coming up, making plays up the gut, making plays around the edge. He blew up a screen. I think it was against the Falcons, I want to say, or it was either the Falcons or the Eagles. He blew up a screen way in the backfield. Like, this is the type of stuff we need. And then you see the alternative guys like Ashton Davis, who I'm not a fan of. They're just never in the right position. They're always leaving huge gaps, huge openings, just always taking a wrong cut to the ball. So Parks is a guy that, to me, if you want to become a winning football team, you got to start making these types of moves. You can't just keep bringing along guys just because you drafted them,
I think U Stadium did report that just last night that it looks like Ashton Davis is going to be the odd man out in that safety room, and his only saving grace was that he was drafted by Joe Douglas, and I'm glad to see that Joe Douglas isn't afraid of letting that go.
Oh yeah, and like I said, if you want to be a winning football team, there can be no free roster spots. If you hear that in the background, that's my dog. But there can be no free roster spots. Everyone's got to earn it every year.
He's got something to say about the Jets, man. Everybody's always going to come into Jet Lounge and
Yeah,
give their
yeah.
piece, even their dog.
That's my German Shepherd, man. He's 1 year old. He's usually sleeping right now, but maybe he hears me talking. So.
Yeah, I mean, as far as Will Parks, I like what he's done. You know, obviously guys like Ashton Davis are going to be on the bubble, and Tony Adams. I thought he's had a pretty good training camp as well. But I mean, we'll probably keep 4 guys: Whitehead, Joyner, Pinnock, and Parks at that position. Those are my opinions. But yeah, I agree with you having that safety who can play the box. You can dictate some of the play action plays and drop back into coverage or show a blitz with your safety. And, a guy like Whitehead, I think, brings that. That was a big pickup. So,
Definitely.
But yeah, what we got Mike in here. Let's see. We'll go to Seth. Seth, good morning. Welcome to Jet Lounge.
Good morning. Thanks, bud. How you guys doing?
How you doing?
Doing
All
good,
right,
man.
Hey, Mike, thanks for joining us, man. I appreciate it. I wanted to talk about, kind of the unusual, I mean, I guess for a Jets fan recently, the unusual energy that I felt coming off that field yesterday. It was everything that had to do with complimentary football, the defense aggressively, forcing turnovers, not giving the QB a lot of time to throw, despite the fact that they had 2s and 3s in there. And then, take that energy. And then you look at a guy like Denzel Mims, and even from the very first time that guy was, found out he was going to be on the Jets, even if you look at, the phone call from our GM and from the staff, he really had a look on his face like he didn't want to be here. I don't think he's ever wanted to be here. He's only wanted to improve his craft, which is admirable. But I really think that Mims is like, I see a lot of guys on Twitter saying, Mims should be the 6. Mims should be definitely in the wide receiver room, the skills that he has. But I think we really need to pay attention to what Rob Saleh's trying to do in that locker room and cultivate a winning culture. And, even if you look at Zach Rosenblatt's coverage, Zach Rosenblatt from The Athletic, if you look at his coverage of the go-ahead touchdown yesterday, is like, well, everybody's celebrating over on the sideline, and Mims is like quietly walking away. And I'm like, okay, I get it. I mean, I really don't feel like Denzel Mims fits with the culture that we're trying to build here. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I guess I'll jump in. I was actually going to bring up that Rosenblatt comment myself. So good on you for seeing that. Yeah, it's really strange. Clearly you hear some teammates say that, they get along with Mims. And I saw like Jeff Smith dapping him up after his touchdown catch. And, guys are trying to get him involved, but he doesn't seem interested. And that's like my greatest fear with keeping Denzel Mims is you got a great young, talented looking receiver like Calvin Jackson, or if you want to go a different route, you got, another promising running back like Zonovan Knight. You got another tight end option like Lawrence Cager, or, Kenny Yeboah, like a young tight end option. Even in a team sense, people may not like it, but you could keep a guy like Wesco who does the little things like block and special teams. But point is, you got a lot of good options to make this roster. And then if you keep Mims just for the sake of keeping him, and then he leaves in basically at the end of 2023 because his rookie contract expires, and let's be honest, he's not staying here behind Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore, and whoever else the Jets have at that point. It's just very unlikely that Mims is ever going to take another contract here. You can't franchise tag him because he's probably not giving you the type of production that it costs to franchise tag a wide receiver, which is a pretty expensive one. So, to me, if you keep Mims here, you're in trouble because you're basically keeping him as a rental. This year, which the Jets could make some noise, but let's be honest, most people aren't expecting them to win a Super Bowl this year. So you're keeping him for 1 year that probably isn't your run year, and then you're keeping him for 2023, which could be a run year, but that's a 1 year rental when you think about it. So that scares me with Mims.
Yeah, that's something I was mentioning. Well, something I was mentioning. Holy cow, couldn't mention before. Was having to cut somebody like Calvin Jackson to make room for Mims, and then only a week later we trade him, and this guy got picked up on the waiver somewhere else. So I don't know. I think if you earned it on the team and this guy wants to be traded, you get rid of him as soon as you can. I don't know.
Well, in reality, he did us the biggest favor with his performance yesterday. His performance was really about, a Matt Rule who's going to be watching the highlights today.
Oh yeah, he raised that value big time, which was good. And maybe you can parlay that into some sort of trade here.
Yeah, I know Matt Rule liked him.
Yeah, I saw that Carolina was trying to look at him. The only thing I was a little, I don't know, like the guy got hurt in the middle of a play, and then we leave him on the field. It's like, okay, what are we doing? Take the guy off the field, then you're looking horrible as a coaching staff.
Yeah. Hey, did you guys see that? Did you guys see that Twitter noise about trading it straight up Robbie Anderson for Denzel Mims? I thought that was pretty funny, but it does raise the question: would you want Robbie Anderson back on your team?
That'd be a funny one because those are both ex Matt Rule college players. He was with Temple and then he was with Baylor. He's with Temple with Robbie Anderson, then he went to Baylor, had Mims. So that's kind of the connection there. I was always not the big. I wasn't against Robbie. I thought he was for undrafted talent. He really made the most of his time here, but I didn't think he was a complete like wide receiver one type of player. I never did. I always thought he was more of like a complementary piece. Now the Jets have other guys now, obviously, but at the time when he was, asking for the money he was asking for, he was more of the wide receiver one at the time. So I was never a huge fan in that sense. If you want, I don't know if they'll flip him for Mims. His contract is pretty pricey too. I think he's actually making more than Corey Davis right now. So decent contract. I don't see that personally. I think the Jets would probably move Mims for some sort of draft pick so that they could keep, a prospect that they really like. Because if you're doing a player swap, then you're kind of in the same boat as you were before, where you got to try and sneak a few of these guys onto the practice squad. They might get on. It's always hard to predict who's going to claim who. And I thought Kenny Yeboah would get claimed yet last year, and he went right through, no issues. So it's always kind of a tricky thing. Like to me, I wouldn't let Calvin Jackson go onto waivers. I just feel like they hit with him. But that's kind of my opinion on that.
Yo, Mike, let me ask you this too. I love Calvin Jackson. I think he could be a legitimate, like that wide receiver 5 on his team. But I was thinking about this yesterday. I personally would only carry 5 wide receivers if it meant being able to carry 4 tight ends with adding Cager, who has that wide receiver-esque talent, but also is a capable tight end too. So to me, my 5 wide receivers would obviously be Garrett, Elijah, Corey Berrios, and Calvin Jackson. And instead of carrying Jeff Smith, I'd rather carry Lawrence Cager. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I'm not a huge fan of Jeff Smith. But there's whenever I answer questions, I try to do it like the reporter in me. What type of stuff I hear from other people, and then also the fan in me, as I am a big Jets fan. So like from a reporter sense, I just haven't heard anything where the Jets are going to cut Jeff Smith. And I know like a lot of fans want that to happen, and I probably would agree with that. I don't think he's as good of a special teamer as the coaching staff makes it sound like he is. I'm not sure how much stock people take in like Pro Football Focus or grading site, but his special teams grades are usually pretty poor. And then even when I look at the eye test, I don't really see him make too many plays at gunner or, on the kick return game as some sort of blocker or make a tackle, open field tackle. So like I don't think he's that great of a special teamer, and I personally would keep someone like Jackson over him. He's just so much higher of a ceiling. Smith made a few plays in preseason. He was decent, but he's had so many opportunities on the active roster. Last year, when everyone was hurt, he really didn't do much. I just wouldn't keep stringing these guys along. I feel like the ceiling player is Jackson. But to get back to your original question, I got a little sidetracked. I do think there's a good chance they keep 4 tight ends. Mike LaFleur likes to run 2 tight end sets. We saw it yesterday. He started out with Conklin and Uzoma out there. There's a reason that they added 3 tight ends this offseason. They want to do that. They want to have the double tight end look. So Ruckert, very talented, but might need some time to, just get adjusted to the NFL level. It would be smart, in my opinion, for them to keep that 4th tight end just to help, in areas where Ruckert's still kind of learning, finding his footing. It would be a huge curveball if that player is Trayvon Wesco, because most fans would probably revolt if that happened. But I could honestly see it happening just because of the things that he does. But then again, if you keep Nick Bowden, you're kind of keeping 2 guys that are very similar. So Yeboah could be a good middle ground. He can do a little bit of everything. He's not as good of a pass catcher as Cager, but he's a better blocker than Cager. And he's probably a better special teamer than Cager at this point. So they have some really interesting options there.
All right. Keep the hands going around. Michael Elias. Good morning, Mike.
Hey, good morning, man.
Hey, good morning, Mike. How are you? I just wanted to ask, honestly, I was looking at your projections for the 53, and I was wondering why you decided to choose to release Anai. I feel like Anai has been a big, he's flashed a lot during camp. I think he's a guy that might sneak into the 53. I don't know how you feel. I would personally cut Hardy and keep Anai. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so it's 2 very different roles there. Anai can play special teams, but the areas that Hardy's playing on special teams, he's playing gunner, he's playing probably he's coming down the flank on the kick return coverage. He's a good blocker so a little bit different. It's going to be really interesting to see if the Jets get creative. And Robert Saleh said the other day, we're going to keep the best 53 football players regardless of position. So to me, that's something coaches say, but it's hard to actually do that. But they could do that initially and then kind of, make some moves after the deadline, bring a couple veteran guys back that they kind of had some sort of little agreement with on the side, like, hey, we're going to cut you and then we're going to bring you back in a couple days. So you might see some, they usually call it like roster gymnastics like that. It's just hard to crunch the numbers on the edge. Anai has been extremely impressive of late. I always thought of him as a camp body initially, even though he was a decent prospect, I think coming out of Utah a few years ago. I just didn't see a spot for him. You got Bryce Huff, who's probably in that 6th spot. I think Jacob Martin is a clear lock. He barely even played in the preseason, which shows you that, the team has him locked into a spot. Then you got the 2 rookies. Then you got Carl Lawson and JFM. So that's 6 guys on the edge. You could maybe do a 7th. It's just like when I'm crunching the numbers, I'm not really thinking, okay, which guys are they then going to bring back 2 days from now? I will say this about Hardy. If you cut Hardy, I don't think you're going to bring him back because you're basically, you're cutting his $2 million salary. So to me, Hardy would be likely to sign somewhere else if he got cut. So if you're going to get rid of Hardy, that's probably a final decision. But I just tried to keep that to 6 just based on numbers. I just don't think you could keep, even in a heavy rotation, most teams aren't keeping 6 defensive ends. It's just a lot of, and then you keep 4 D tackles, that's 10 D linemen. It's big numbers there.
Yeah, as far as special teams, since we're talking about it too, and actually could bring up the running back room, you think they keep a fullback in Bowden over Bam Knight? Because he was a contributor on the special teams as well.
Yes, I do think they keep a fullback. There is a chance that they try out Wesco there again. Just the only reason what that would be if there's, Bowden had some injuries the last couple of weeks, but I think he's all right now. I do think it'll be Bowden. It just makes sense that LaFleur has always been in a system that has utilized the fullback pretty much his entire coaching career. It's a staple of this offense, so I think you have to have a fullback.
Yeah, I I do too. I just I hate to lose a guy like Bam Knight. He did play well as in the backfield and on the special teams. But I think like we look at Kyle Juszczyk and it's in San Francisco with the same type of offense that Jimmy Garoppolo was driving in. I think it's a very similar offense. I agree there. Just wanted to see what your thoughts were.
I will say real quick. I will say, just from what I'm hearing, I don't want to like jinx it or anything, but just from what I'm hearing and from what everyone's saying, like I think fans have it's kind of like me with Yeboah last year. Fans have this opinion that Knight's definitely going to get claimed. I don't know if Knight's going to get claimed. You might see him slip through just because of the position and, just kind of like a lot of things of what fans have seen as things in practice and stuff of that nature. He did have a couple big plays. I know he had the big play yesterday, but his overall stats in the preseason actually weren't. If you were like an outside observer and you had no clue anything about the Jets, and then you looked at his stats and you looked at what everyone's saying about him, you'd be like, wait, this doesn't match up. So I don't know. A lot of that wasn't his fault. A lot of it was the run blocking, but at the same time, I'm not sure somebody's just hopping in to claim him, but we'll see.
Yeah, I just think we just get that little PTSD from Danny Woodhead and putting him on the. At least me personally, losing a guy who starting somewhere else for a good amount of time and contributing to a winning team, seeing that happen, it's just like, oh, we had him. All right, yeah, we'll keep the hands going. Let's go to Petty, then we'll go to Happy, then Joe, then Mark. Go ahead, Petty.
So, Mike, welcome to the lounge.
Thank you.
So, when it comes to the defensive line, who do you see as cuts, like the interior wise? Like I don't see Nathan Shepard still making the team, even though he is flashed during the last few preseason games. But I think that Jonathan Marshall is most likely probably going to stick around.
Yeah, so I agree with that. Shepard's another guy that some reporters and some people, really close to the team have said you could see him get cut and then maybe come back. I think his contract, he's a vested veteran, so I think they have sort of more of an option to do that with him. Jonathan Marshall, though, as much as they love Shepard, which they always say they do, I'm not a fan of Shepard at all. I've been saying that he should be cut for a while. As much as they are a fan of him, though, it's kind of a tough spot for him this year. You got a draft pick last year in Marshall that Douglas isn't going to want to just cut. I mean, Marshall actually looked, 10 times better than Shepard this summer too. So you don't want to cut him. I'm not sure what the deal is with Sheldon Rankins because I thought he was fine, but then I just saw one or two things just before hopping on, so I didn't really get a chance to research too much on it. But I saw one or two things where some people think he could start on the PUP, which is a 4-game, basically injured slot. I'm not positive what the deal is with Rankins because I hadn't heard anything about him being injured, but I also haven't seen him in a bit, so that could be something to watch. But personally, I had it as Rankins, Quinnen, Marshall, and Solomon Thomas, who I don't think is going anywhere. Salah brought in Thomas for a reason. It's a big staff favorite again. So yeah, I just can't see any way that Shepard and Smart make the initial 53. Smart is a classic, practice squad guy. Probably won't get claimed because he's a little older, and he'll probably, they'd probably be happy to have him back. He's a great team guy. And then Shepard is an interesting one because, like I said, if there's some sort of injury situation with Rankins or something like that, you might see him maybe come back. That would be my initial guess, though. Marshall is definitely in.
Mike, do you think Bradley and I makes the team after his last two outings?
I still don't think he does. I do think they'll try and keep him on the practice squad. I don't know. To me, edge rusher is a premium position. Probably one of one of the most coveted positions in the game, other than quarterback and maybe one other, maybe it's second. So left tackle maybe. So a guy like Anai could definitely get snatched up. The only way I could see him making it as a seventh guy maybe over Zuniga. Zuniga started really hot this summer, and he kind of cooled off. I didn't really hear much. I didn't see much of him when I was watching the game yesterday. So those two are kind of like neck and neck. You also have some people think Vinny Curry is going to make it just based on name, but I personally would never do that. He's been injured all summer. He hasn't done anything, so I would not keep Curry. But I think Anai probably has the lead for that seventh spot if there is one. It's just, again, it's going to come down to how the Saleh and Douglas decide to do this whole thing. If they decide to just keep, okay, these are the best 53 guys. These are the guys that we cannot lose or we cannot risk losing. Then you might see a seventh at the end, which would also be an 11th probably D lineman, unless they just go kind of slim at tackle and they go 3D tackle. But that was kind of my initial guess that they might do that, like 3D tackles. But then as time went on, Marshall started to prove himself, and to me, I kind of I flipped that. I don't know if anyone, was following me beforehand, but my original roster projections, I only had Solomon Thomas and Quinnen and Rankins making it. And then I flipped that sort of later on, and I put Marshall in there because I think he's earned it. So I right now, I would still say Marshall over Anai.
All right. Go ahead, Happy.
Yeah, Mike, what's going on, buddy?
What's going on?
Got a question for you. You said you're a big Jeff fan, so I got a for the fan in you on this question. Where would you think suitably, looking at a couple teams, maybe Dallas, they're a little bit banged up at wide receiver. Maybe Atlanta, they really have no one outside of Drake London. What's a good tradable, partner for Mims? And I know you said Bam Knight, you feel that he's not going to make the team. Do you think the Jets go into the season with 4 running backs? And if so, besides obviously Brees and Michael Carter, who are the other 2 you got making the team?
So in terms of trade partners for Mims, I do think there is some, smoke to the whole Carolina thing just because of Matt Rule. He's shown in the past that he's willing to give it, second chance opportunities to his players, for better, for worse, usually for worse, because he's been a pretty bad coach. Also, their owner is just he wants to win desperately. He's like a, billionaire, and he just, he'll make any move possible. So I could definitely see them being one. I like the Falcons and the Giants just because they saw him in person. I think that's big. At joint practices is what I'm referring to. It's good to get those looks at a guy because honestly, Mims didn't play that much up until that last game. So they could be 2 to look at, especially the Giants lost, I think they lost like 2 or 3 receivers recently for the season. I know they lost Colin Johnson, and a couple other guys have been banged up. I think Shepard's coming back from a bad injury. So they could be one. Falcons, as you mentioned, don't have many playmakers. That makes sense to me. Take a shot on a guy when you're rebuilding. Why not? And then also the Bears is another one that I was looking at. I know some people were looking at the Bears. They're rebuilding, pretty much tearing it all down. They haven't really supplied Justin Fields with many playmakers. That is a clear one to me that made a lot of sense. There might be some others if you look around the league, but those are probably the 4 that I'm looking at. And then for the other question, I'm keeping 3 running backs. That's not including the fullback, Bowden, but I would just personally be keeping Brees Hall, Michael Carter, and Tevin Coleman. Coleman is another guy that, a year ago, I didn't even want him to make the roster, but I did kind of see what he can do, which are the little things. He's a good pass protector. He knows this system inside and out. He's been in it since his rookie year. He's been with LaFleur and Shanahan, since Atlanta, and then to San Francisco after that. So he's obviously a big staff favorite. He's a good mentor for the younger guys. I do think the Jets really like what he offers just in that veteran role. So I don't think he's going anywhere. And then if it was a different year, you would probably take 4 running backs. But I mean, just listen to some of the questions we're getting. Should we keep a 7th defensive end? Should we keep a 4th D tackle? Should we keep a 6th or 7th cornerback? The Jets are just stacked at too many positions this year. They drafted Breece Hall in the 2nd round. They traded up to get him. It just seems kind of, I don't want to say irresponsible, but it seems like they can't keep 4 running backs this year just based on the moves they've made and the situation that they're in.
Can you escort Nathan Shepard out of the building? Because I don't think they should keep Nathan Shepard.
Yeah, I don't think they should either. Like I said, I don't think he'll make the initial 53-man roster, but don't be shocked if there's like a spot frees up. Maybe someone gets put on an injured list. Maybe a couple weeks of the season go by, somebody gets hurt. Don't be shocked if he comes back though, because he's the type of guy that the staff likes a lot. And I would personally hate it, but I could see it.
Wait, I don't know. I was watching some of the game. I mean, most of the game yesterday, but I didn't see Bryce Hall on the field, or did I just totally miss him?
No, so he was actually dealing with an injury yesterday. I don't think it's not anything that's too big of a concern by any means, but after because I noticed that too. I was like, oh, wow, how come Eccles is out there? Did Bryce Hall get benched? After kind of dropping an egg the week before, but no, he was injured. So that's what Salah said. DJ Reed was also dealing with some more, minor issues. I think his hamstring with him. Off the top of my head, I'm forgetting what they said Bryce Hall's was, but again, it wasn't anything to concern yourself over. It's just a minor thing. They figured we'll let him sit the last preseason game.
All right, let's go over to Joe. Go ahead, Joe DeMarc.
Yeah, what's up, man? Hey, what's up, Mike?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I was in and out. I didn't have a chance to hear. I don't know. Maybe you've already discussed it, but what do they see as far as after Zach and Joe Flacco as the 3rd guy? I get the impression they trust White more than they do Strebler, even though Strebler's really played really well. I mean, I think so. Somebody's going to look at him and want to pick him up, but do you see them basically keeping White and putting Strebler on the practice squad, or?
Yeah, so no, we haven't discussed this yet. This is a good one to talk about. Yeah, I think White is, especially after yesterday, I think he sort of reminded the staff.
He looked good yesterday.
Yeah. I mean, I think they would have kept him anyway, even if he didn't do that yesterday, to be honest. I do think they really like him. They know that they know that he's done it before in a regular season game. So that's the thing he has going for him over Strebler. I know Strebler spent some time with Arizona and he's got the whole CFL history, but when you're keeping a guy for the long-term future, I think a lot of times coaches try and think without that recency bias. A lot of times fans, including myself, we go straight to the recency bias of, man, Strebler's incredible. We got to keep him. And I personally would keep him too, just because maybe that's the fan in me talking, but I'm not the huge Mike White supporter just based on overall ceiling. I never, saw the ceiling with him, the arm strength. And another thing that I like about Strebler is he is kind of similar to Zach Wilson the way he plays. So that, to me, that's good, having a guy that is similar to your starter. But, I'll digress off that for a second and say I do think White solidified that spot. They know that he can step up in a big moment like he did last year, even if maybe Cincinnati was sleepwalking a little bit in that game. But whatever the situation may be, whatever side of the conversation you are on with White, you know that he can do it, basically, is the thing. And you know that he knows this system. He knows their wide receivers. So I do think White will definitely be kept. Strevler is an interesting one. Some people seem to think he could slip to the practice squad. I don't see that. I think there's QB is just such a position that you're always going to see someone take a chance on. I actually heard somebody say, Mike Kay of Pro Football Network said the other night, like, if he's Seattle right now, who are starting Geno Smith, he would flip us a pick for Strevler right now and just get ahead of the game, get ahead of the waiver system. So maybe you even see Strevler get traded if there's a market for him. I guess it all depends on what Joe Douglas hears within the next 24 hours. Because if he hears that if teams are calling about him, then you know that he's going to get claimed. So, it's kind of a situation where if he hears somebody say, like, hey, we're interested in giving you something for him, you kind of would have to think to yourself, well, I'm probably not going to be able to keep this guy. So, why not flip basically what started as a training camp arm? Why not flip that for something? I just think it's possible this was the last time we saw Strevler, unfortunately, in a Jets jersey.
No.
I just want to piggyback with one more thing off of that, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
My big thing is that I spoke earlier, as far as like with your opinion on with Zach Wilson. I mean, to me, he's got to play every game this year if he can. I mean, he's not going to play week 1. We know that, but if he's ready week 2, he's got to play week 2. My thing is, it's just that they need to see him play every game to know. Because here's the thing. Usually you give quarterbacks minimum of 3 years, but we saw what happened with Sam Darnold, and it set us back by letting him stay around too long. Look, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. The jury's still out with me with Zach Wilson. I don't know if he could do it. I don't know if I know he's got all the physical ability, but I want to see him do it like yesterday we saw Strevler do, and see Mike White do, make those throws. Move the offense. Don't turn it over. So my thing is, as far as your opinion, I'm asking you, what do you think as far as with Zach? How long of a leash does he have as far as with this team? I mean, if he goes, let's say he plays bad this year and the team wins 5 games and he just struggles. I mean, what do you see? I mean, he's going to get another year, I'm sure, but I mean, it's just. I'm a 40-year fan. I know I'm negative. I always see I always look for the other shoe to drop. I've seen it before. I don't know this kid. I wish I could say, man, this guy's Herbert. I know this guy's our guy, Justin Herbert. I don't have to think about it. I watched that first preseason game. I know it's preseason, but he throws that bad pick. He throws Garrett Wilson. He throws it a foot over his head. I mean, we saw Mike White make every throw yesterday over the middle, 20-yard seams on on a rope. We saw Strevler in the second half do it, make plays with his legs, move the ball, move the offense, lead the team. I understand it's preseason. I got to see Zach do that week after week after week after week after week. That's my thing. I don't know if he can do that.
Yeah. So Zach's always going to be a frustrating one because whether you like him from the draft or not, he shows those moments where he can be an MVP type of player. Not saying he will be, but he shows those moments. Not a lot of QBs have the pure talent that he has, but he doesn't always have that consistency. With Zach, I really think you got to look at the context clues of the situation. The Jets are never going to come out and say this is his last shot, but everything they did this offseason shows you that they are basically going to, kind of see what they have in him this year. I'm not saying that if he doesn't make the playoffs, he's going to get benched or something like that. But they brought in 2 tight ends, 2 veteran tight ends, also, rookie tight end that's talented. They brought in Garrett Wilson with a top 10 pick. They've done everything they could to help him on the offensive line. They brought in Laken Tomlinson. I think that was their biggest, most expensive signing this year. Becton goes down. They bring in Dwayne Brown right away. So they're basically not giving him any excuses. Breece Hall, I'm not even mentioning Breece Hall is like a perfect safety net. In college, what he was a guy that can move the ball on the ground and then also catch the ball. out of the backfield. So there's really no excuses at this point. I am a Zach Wilson fan, but the reality of the situation is Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh are approaching the end of their own leash. So some people might think they have till the end of 2023, but if they had a really awful season in 2022, I don't think it's too far fetched to say that Woody Johnson, who kind of has a quick trigger sometimes, could be thinking about replacing them. And if they get replaced, you already know that Zach Wilson's getting replaced because that's just the way the NFL works. So I don't think it's too far fetched to say that this is kind of a prove it year for Zach. At least he has to show, one, like you said, that he's not going to make those bonehead decisions like he made in the preseason game and injure himself basically, because that type of thing is maybe in a big moment you want him to do that, but you don't want him to do that in a meaningless game. Try and extend a play. So one, he has to prove he can keep himself healthy by playing smart. Tom Brady's done that his whole career. He's played smart and he's kept himself healthy. And then there are other examples of that around the league. So he has to do that. And then two, he does have to show that he can, move the ball within the offense, which he did show last year. But he has to, just prove that wasn't a random occurrence. That was something that, he can continue to do. Because when he's moving the ball and when the run game's working, you're set up really well if you're the Jets, because then you don't even have to worry about the ridiculous plays. Those things will come naturally. So I do think this is a big year. I wouldn't say it's like a crisis mode, like make or break type thing, but I think if he totally came out and just like crashed and burned with all the offensive pieces that they put around him, I wouldn't be shocked if Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh, to save them their own job, told Woody Johnson, listen, we built a great team here. We built a great roster. We just screwed up on this one pick. Let us take Bryce Young or one of these top, prospects next year, or let us bring in, a veteran that's available, whoever that may be. And, give us another shot, one more year type of thing. It's a cutthroat business. To save their own job, you could easily see that happening.
Yeah, let me just say one thing. This is why last year, after the first preseason game, everyone was like, why was Zach Wilson out there for that second drive and all that bullshit? But you see, this is exactly why they trotted Zach Wilson out there, because everyone is so focused on him overthrowing Garrett Wilson in the one pick that that's all you remember. Oh, Zach Wilson threw a pick. Zach Wilson overthrew Garrett Wilson. Obviously, if Zach Wilson didn't get hurt, if Zach Wilson came back and led a scoring drive on that second drive, and everyone would be like, oh, Zach Wilson is fucking fantastic. He's going to be that guy. But no, with a young quarterback, you needed him to bounce back, show that confidence, and I know he made a boneheaded play. But let's be real, Zach Wilson at the end of the year showed promise, and he started doing everything you wanted him to do week after week and not turning the ball over. And I know we're praising Mike White, but just last week, Mike White stunk it up. Like, Strevler hasn't – okay, he's done it in the preseason, which is great, but he did it, frankly, versus guys that are not making the NFL roster. Like, I hate to be that guy, but he's doing it versus guys that are not going to be in the NFL in 2 weeks. So I think we need to pump the brakes on it. Zach Wilson is going to be okay. From all we've been hearing, he's been having a really good camp and has been improving, building on good practice after good practice for a while now until he got hurt. So I expect him to be a little rusty when he gets back. But I don't know. Let's pump the brakes on it because Zach Wilson is going to be okay.
Yeah, and I don't want to when I'm answering that question, I don't mean to sound too negative. I personally think Zach Wilson will, come out of this, and I'm more worried about him getting hurt than, his talent. I think he's got all the talent in the world. So my personal opinion is that he is the guy. But, I just do think if you're asking me honestly, if there's a chance, and that's a great point about White and Strevler not facing top competition, and also White was horrible the first two games. So I agree with all that. But if you're asking me honestly, if I think there's a chance that this is a big year for him. I do think it is, and part of that is just being in New York City. I think Joe Douglas and Sala are very aware of the New York media. They're very, very aware of the New York fan base. They're very aware that Woody Johnson doesn't always give guys 6 years, to turn things around. So there's a lot of outliers there. Right now, I would say Zach Wilson's the quarterback for this year and beyond, and he would have to really screw up to change that. But I also realize that things could look very different in 2 months if the Jets, start off 0-6 or something like that, and then you have everybody basically, flipping on this thing, and then you're going to hear a lot of negativity. So it's really going to depend on how he shows up, how he looks compared to Flacco. Flacco will probably get at least one game, right? So going to be some interesting things to monitor.
And kind of, since we're continuing on the Zach Wilson talk, honestly, I think he does end up missing week 1, probably not by a lot. But what do you think are like real chances that he plays week 1? I know they showed a clip yesterday where he was on the bike. He doesn't have anything on his knee anymore. I think it all depends on the bone bruise because it was only a cleanup of the surgery, so it's not like a long recovery. I think it's more about the bone bruise and like his recovery with that. But if he already doesn't have a knee brace on or anything like that and building the strength back, I think there's a legit shot with 2 weeks away that if he starts taking some practice reps this week at all, that he might be able to be ready week 1.
Yeah, I think there's a shot. We got to see, those. I think there's going to be some practices probably next week beforehand where we see if he practices or not. If he doesn't practice, there's no way they're going to just throw him back out there. But if he does practice for the week, maybe. I don't see I don't see a reason personally to rush him back. Flacco looked horrible yesterday, but he's had a really good summer. I know that Saleh loves Flacco. Like, if you think Saleh loves Mike White, he likes Flacco 10 times more than Mike White. So Flacco against his old team kind of makes sense. Maybe see if he can spark a little revenge game type atmosphere. I don't think there's any way, like some people said, like, what if Flacco lights it up? Will he, bench Zach Wilson week 2? No, I don't think there's any chance that's ever going to happen. Zach Wilson will play once he's fully healthy. But when you look at it with Flacco, he's probably good enough to be a placeholder in this offense. If the offense runs the way it's supposed to run, he's the type of guy that could lead the ball down the field. And another thing, just one last thing to consider, the Ravens have a very formidable secondary. They had a lot of injuries last year, which is why their defense wasn't as good last year, but everyone's back. That's a formidable team. If you're just consciously thinking about it from a perspective of, is this the first game we want Wilson back for, as a GM or a coach, especially if you think he might still be recovering a little bit. To me, it just seems like a little bit easier of a move to bring him back the next week. Not as strong, like Cleveland defense is. It's okay, but it's not as strong as Baltimore, in my opinion. We saw that last year with Wilson too. They brought him back against the Texans, and that was like kind of a layup game for him. So I do think they're conscious of that too.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I wouldn't want anybody but Joe Flacco starting this game behind Zach Wilson. My man played for this coach for 10 years. So if you got a veteran quarterback out there leading a team with young players, why not have a guy who played against this division, especially with Pittsburgh and Baltimore, because he's seen them for 10 years. He knows what they're about. So I have faith that he shook off some rust in his first action. He didn't look bad until he threw that stupid screen pass. That was horrible, but he shook off a little rust, and I'm fine with him being there. And the fact that we're arguing who should be quarterback 3, that's a pretty good sign that we have some talent that we're thinking about Mike White as, oh my God, we're going to lose Mike White. Like, all right, guys, like, it's Mike White, guys. We'll be okay with Joe Flacco. That's just my opinion. But let's keep the hands going. Mark, go ahead.
Thanks, Justin, and thanks, Mike, for joining us.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, a question to you about the wide receiver room. So I'm more of a traditional guy, and that means having a big-bodied receiver on the roster. And assuming that the Jets flip Mims, which I'm excited to see what kind of value Joe Douglas can get for Denzel Mims. I know folks are excited about Calvin Jackson, and I am too, but I mean, how many like 5'9" burners can you have on the roster before you're like, wait a minute, these receivers need to contribute in the run game, and asking Elijah Moore or Garrett Wilson to block downfield, like, sorry, like these big body and explosive runs come from having big body guys downfield. So my question's about Irv Charles. Like I watched him drag 2-3 guys after a reception. And if Mims is gone, if you look at the depth chart, like Mims is right behind Corey Davis. So what do you think of Irv Charles? Do you think he makes the roster? Do they stash him on the practice squad? What?
Yeah, I really like Irv Charles. Glad you brought him up. I do agree with you. He's more of the on the way I see the depth chart. I don't know if this is the way the Jets see it, but on the way that I see it personally, I have Corey Davis, Mims, and then Charles all on one side. Then I have on my X side, I have Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson, Jeff Smith, and Calvin Jackson, guys like that. They could also play the slot, but probably line up X sometimes. You do need to, in the outside zone scheme, you do need to block on the outside. It's key. That's honestly one of the biggest reasons that they signed Corey Davis, and something that Corey Davis doesn't get a lot of credit for, but he deserves credit for, is he's a tremendous run blocker on the outside. Mims is also a pretty good run blocker on the outside. I'm not sure he's as good as Davis, but he's solid. So that's an interesting question. I think it's more likely that the Jets keep Mims because they can't find like a trade offer that suits them than keeping Charles. It's nothing against Charles. I just don't think he stood out as much. I don't think anyone's going to claim a guy like Charles either. I think he'll be an easy practice squad addition. So to me, if there was a guy that stayed, even though they are kind of similar to Jeff Smith and Elijah Moore, it would probably be Jackson. Or I could honestly see the Jets going wide receiver light if they trade Mims, and maybe just keeping 5 guys, at first, keeping some other position, and then maybe sneaking one of these guys back onto the roster later. Like in a weird way, Charles kind of reminds me of Lawrence Cager when he was a wide receiver, because he, started on the practice squad. He was kind of impressive. Cager was a little impressive as an undrafted prospect too originally. Started on the practice squad and then eventually came up to the active roster. So I could easily see that happening during the season. You're dead on with the whole run blocking point. But it is a little weird because, like, at the same time, LaFleur likes these shifty route runners. So it's kind of like a catch-22. Like, do you keep a guy like Mims who maybe the route tree doesn't fit the offense as well? Or, do you keep a guy like who's a good run blocker if you kind of catch my drift?
Yeah, that's always tough because we had Coach Mike Westhoff on here too about being able to play special teams. This guy's got to prove themselves as they're trying to make the last spot as a receiver. That's key too. Being a run blocker, that's probably one and the same with being able to be on the special teams. You're not afraid to make contact as a gunner or whatever, not just going for a pass and running around.
Yeah, and I actually saw, just on that topic, I saw Irv Charles make like a great special teams play. I think it was against the Eagles, I want to say. It's one of the first 2 games. Made a really great special teams play as a gunner, which kind of surprised me because he's a big guy. You don't expect him. He can fly. He can kind of fly a little bit. So I really like Irv Charles. Like, he's a guy I don't expect to get claimed. I'll be surprised if that happens. So I think we'll see more of Irv Charles. I just don't think he'll be on the initial 53-man roster.
And Mike, since we're talking about the wide receiver room, what are your expectations for Elijah Moore and even Garrett Wilson? I know Garrett Wilson has all the talent in the world, but obviously it took Elijah a little bit to get going and fully understand the offense and what is expected of him. But what's your expectation for Elijah, and what's your expectations for Garrett going into the season?
Yeah, I think so. I think with like rookie wide receivers, we've been a little bit like spoiled the last couple of years. Guys like Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. To me, those guys are more unicorns. You don't see guys just burst onto the scene and dominate like that too often. Chase is also a lot more physical of a player than some of these other young wide receivers. Some of them have to bulk up a little bit. We saw that with Elijah Moore. He had to kind of I think he gained maybe like 8 to 10 pounds this offseason. I wrote about it, but I'm forgetting now how many pounds it was exactly. And he also had to kind of just see how defenses work, see how his routes could settle into the scheme, the defensive scheme. So I do think Garrett Wilson's going through some of that same stuff right now. He looks like he's got all the traits to be a playmaker. He's got great shifty routes where he's not doing anything all that fast, but he's just very smooth. In the way he runs them, separates pretty well. Even at this stage, I'm sure that will just get better as he kind of learns the NFL game. He has had some drops, but by all accounts, he's got good hands. I don't think, I've tweeted about his drops, but at the same time, I'm not too worried about that long term. Probably just like as he's probably overthinking everything else, so it's taking away from his just being natural in the moment, catching the ball, because he's thinking about, okay, I got to run this route, do this. So once everything else kind of slows down for him, I think that will correct itself. I'm not the type to come out and say like, oh, Garrett Wilson's going to get 1,000 yards this year. I also just don't think that's the way the Jets offense is going to work. I think it's going to be run heavy. I think it's going to be play action game. I think they're going to spread the ball around a lot. Guys like Conklin will eat up reps. Guys like eat up touches. Guys like even Uzoma and guys like Breece Hall out of the backfield, Michael Carter out of the backfield. There's just a lot of mouths to feed. So I would expect kind of a more conservative numbers. Maybe something like 600-700 yards would be solid to me. I wouldn't that wouldn't worry me or anything. That would just be like, okay, if he looks good, that's a solid year. Make some big plays here and there. Maybe a good year to me would be like 800 yards. For Elijah Moore, he's the guy that I'm expecting to take the biggest leap in the wide receiver room. He's got the speed. He's kind of like tailor-made for this offense. The fact that he slipped to the Jets last year was just like a godsend to me. As long as the big thing with Elijah Moore is like kind of like Zach Wilson, if he can stay on the field, if he can stay healthy, I don't see why he's not going to be putting up big numbers. He's probably the only guy in the Jets receiver core that I would think could get to 1,000 yards this year. Just like I said before, the way it's set up, it just doesn't really lend itself to, a bunch of 1,000-yard receivers. I don't think they're going to throw the ball like that. But just because of his big playability, I could see Elijah Moore getting there, because he could take one pass, one catch, and take it for 70, 80 yards. So that's kind of where I'm thinking with those two. Again, I'm not the biggest homer, so I probably wouldn't project some ungodly numbers for either of them. But I do think, Elijah Moore is the one right now, like in terms of production. And then you're going to have Garrett Wilson and Corey Davis kind of sharing that two role in terms of production, where you might see Davis out there on early downs because he's a better blocker and he's kind of the veteran, knows the route tree, knows the system. And then you'll probably see Garrett Wilson come in on, passing downs. And as the season goes on, maybe he'll even start working in more in the early downs.
Yeah, I see a lot of production coming from guys like Berrios too. Those little shovel passes where it counts as a pass, but you're getting those, 15 yards after carries. You'll get them a lot with Moore too. I think they're built for those type of plays. But it's all going to be predicated on their offensive line play. Obviously, with being able to control the clock, having fresh legs with Michael Carter, and having Breece beat up those defensive linemen. Obviously, everybody's like saying, "Oh, we got to do better with our rushing attack." You got to remember too, Dwayne Brown was just brought to this team, and Font was just brought to the other side. So a lot of these guys still have to get that cohesion. You also have Vera Tucker now playing on the right. So it's not a matter of who is up there. It's a matter of how they play as a unit. And I just don't think they've had a lot of time at doing that. Obviously, with Becton going down right before the first preseason game, I think a lot of having that unit come together is going to have to come a little bit of time, but hopefully sooner than later, because we don't want Flacco out there having run it for his life, because we know we can't. So with that being a little bit of segue in, what are you thinking about Dwayne Brown and the font moving around the line and that throwing a little bit of a wrench into the spokes here late in the getting ready for the season?
Yeah, Brown looked good to me yesterday. I was a little worried about, I barely watched Seattle play, in all honesty, so I haven't followed him really too much. I remember when he was with Houston, but I think he was with Houston early in his career. But yeah, he looked really good to me yesterday in pass protection. I thought the run blocking was better, even though some fans are still saying it's not great. I thought it was a lot better against the Giants. I also think that the Jets have been running a very vanilla run game so far in preseason. They had I saw Breece Hall take in the first couple of games take two or three just straight up the gut handoffs where I'm thinking to myself, I can't imagine that they're running Breece Hall just like basically an H-back dive, in the middle of the season. So I do think they were kind of not showing too much in terms of that, and that's probably something that's going to start a little slow. Obviously, you don't want one of your 5 starting offensive linemen to join the team 2 weeks, 3 weeks before the season. So it's probably a good bet to say that the run game may start slow, and then kind of like what happened last year, could get really good sort of as we get to the week 5, week 6. Because last year the run game or in the offensive line in general looked really bad. I think it was maybe the first 6 weeks of the season. Zach Wilson maybe didn't help them out all the time, but at the same time, you can't tell me that it looked, it looked good. Zach Wilson aside, no matter who was back there. So it started really bad last year. I'm not saying it's going to be that bad this year because guys like GVR are gone, and when you're holding up an anchor like that, you're just going to bring everyone else down. So you take out GVR, you put in Tomlinson. There's just a natural. Everyone else is going to get better, but it could start a little slower than you'd like. But at some point, even 3-4 weeks into the season, I want to see this run game easily getting over 100 yards a game. That's kind of the plan to me.
Yeah, I'm a little bit older, but I grew up watching teams with Curtis Martin on them, and blessed to watch him for as long as I did. And I see a lot of similarities. Dare I need to say it with Breece, with being patient behind the line, waiting for that hole to open. So I'm just hoping for that type of those holes to open, so he can get through them, because he seems like a patient back. I seen him get called for the dive up the middle, and then he bounced out to the outside for a good 7-8 yard run. That's what I'm hoping to see more of, because I think that's the type of back he is, like a young Le'Veon Bell, Curtis Martin, where they dance a little bit in the backfield instead of hitting the hole quick, but once they hit that hole, they're like, oh shit, I gotta make up for lost time and try to get them. So dare I say it, but that's who I see him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a younger fan. I'm 28, about to be 20. Yeah, about to be 29. So I'm obviously a younger fan. I obviously know Curtis Martin, but when I think of comparisons, I always think of newer guys, just because that's what I watch.
Yeah.
Le'Veon Bell to me is what I see when I see Breece Hall. So it's funny that you mentioned him. There are a few people that have this ability to just. He's basically stop at any moment and shift their entire weight the opposite direction, whether that's backwards, left, right, and then at the same time they could also do a quick one cut rather than a juke. There's just few running backs that could do that, and I wasn't in favor of drafting a running back because I really liked Michael Carter, but once I started looking at Breece Hall's tape really in depth after they drafted him, and really just diving into it, because I never really saw him as a fit originally, I was like, wow, I was stupid to say that, because this guy is perfect.
Yeah.
He's literally exactly what LaFleur needs, and obviously, 2 running backs is never a bad thing. So
yeah,
I
mean, I think one of the guys were coming in here. He said a lot that he was, Michael Carter was backing up Javonte Williams at UNC, and with fresh legs, he was averaging 8 yards a carry his senior year. So that's that's big. You know, like somebody's keeping
Oh,
fresh
yeah.
legs. You know, especially when we see the injury bug going around that we still could plug a starter in. Well, it was nothing, but
Yeah, and even like Tevin Coleman has been averaging like 4.5 yards, 4.7 yards per game most times, and last year and this year in preseason. So like that's not a bad third person to have. You
Yeah.
bring him in, he could just while the defense is tired, he bring him in, he could run right through somebody. That's not a bad thing to have either.
Yep. Let's go to Happy. Happy Jet fan. Go ahead, Happy.
Yeah. So, Mike, I just got 2 questions. So the first one, I want to look ahead a little bit with the matchup against Baltimore. Just looking at their tight ends now, Isaiah Likely exploded. Ideally, what kind of defense are you going to play? Like, who are you going to match up on? Mark Andrews, and if need be, if they roll out Isaiah Likely. The wide receivers. I'm not too worried about. Again, you can't sleep on him. It's Rashad Bateman, and it looks like Demarcus Robinson looks like he's going to most likely step up as their 2. But yeah, I mean, looking at the 2 tight ends, like what kind of scheme are you going to run? And then when you answer that, I just do have one more follow-up question.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know personally what Olbert's going to do. Like, I personally would consider putting someone like Sauce, who's got the size, on someone like Andrews. I don't know if he's ready for that yet, but that's what you drafted him for, right? Like, you want Sauce to take away, the opposition's best player. Like Reed is no doubt the number 1 cornerback right now, but the reason that you drafted Sauce is that he can take away their best player. So, and when they faced up with the Falcons at joint practices, you saw him go up against Pitts once or twice. I know there's like the video where Pitts kind of beats him, but the ball gets overthrown. But overall, though, I thought he looked okay against him. It's going to be an adjustment, a learning experience, but I thought he looked okay against like a huge unicorn type player like Pitts. So I don't know if they're going to do that in week 1. Eventually, I think that's the plan. You might see maybe someone like Joyner or Whitehead, who are a little smaller, but maybe they'll try and match them up there. Michael Carter will probably get some looks on a guy like Andrews, just because Carter has experience against those types of players in the past. I don't think that's going to go too well if the Jets do that, though. Like, if you're asking me who's going to have the best shot at it, I honestly think Sauce is the one that's got the best shot at guarding these guys, and then just let the other corners kind of take over with the Ravens wide receivers, like you said, aren't anything really to worry about too much. Bateman's talented, but other than that, they don't have too many wide receivers. So that's kind of where I would go. And then you also got Quan Alexander, who's like, if you're talking about an early down, he's a great coverage linebacker. I'd be interested to see if Quan Alexander can kind of step up, maybe in more of like a zone look underneath the type thing, follow kind of shadow Andrews here and there. So there's a lot of options. I honestly, I don't think it'll be one guy. I think it'll, a lot of times with the Jets, it will be more of like a scheme defense where they kind of don't necessarily break their whole scheme just to fit one player. That's what we saw last year, at least.
Yeah, before we get to Happy's second question, real quick, if you guys can, on your emoji app, let me get the clapping for Quan Alexander's hit where he busted that ball out. Get that clapping going, man, because I was like, here we go. This is what we got this dog for, guys. So
yeah, and to me, Quan's got to I don't know if he's going to start week 1, but you got to start Quan. To me, I think the difference is night and day between him and Quincy Williams. He knows, he's an NFL linebacker who's got experience, and you can tell he just knows where to be. He knows always what he has to do. So I would start Quan in the heavy, whenever they're at 2 linebackers out there, which is often.
Yeah, Mike.
Happy got a second part to that question. My bad.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, Mike, real quick. So I'm assuming you're an East Coast guy. So
Yep.
just had a quick question.
Yonkers, New York.
There you go. So what's your preferred sandwich spot? Up here, some of the guys besides me, Justin, Benny, and Petey, they frequent Subway very often. So just trying to see what sandwich, your sandwich preference, and also Petey and the Jumbotron. Petey and Justin. They're coming out with Papa John's football pizza. I know you guys are amped up, so if they're sending them out nationwide. But yeah, Mike, let's just
Mike,
to break.
I hope you sprinkle a little sarcasm on every one of your sandwiches.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. Maybe it's the Yonkers in me. Like if I'm buying one, my most likely place I'm going to is like kind of like just your average New York deli corner store. I love getting wraps and getting wedges and getting bacon, egg, and cheeses like loaded up. Put some sausage on there. Like that's the way that I get it done. You could literally, where I'm from, you could find that at a number of places, pretty much anywhere within 5 minutes. But that's the old school, like Yonkers person in me. But if I'm talking like chain type sandwiches, I actually really like. It's not New York, but I really like Jersey Mike's. I don't know if that'll get me in trouble, but Jersey Mike's makes some good. They make some good subs.
That's what I try to tell these guys, Mike. But they always, every time they ask me for lunch, I always get the text message like, "Hey, I'm in town. Let's go to Subway," and I tell
Get
them,
out of here. He just likes Jersey Mike's because of his name. As we're talking about food, Sauce Gardner just got partnered with Buffalo Wild Wings for the sauce. So that was a little segue for some food. If you would have never met Happy, you would think he was 450 pounds. This guy is always talking about food, and I'm the fat one. Thanks, Happy. We'll go over to Michael Elias real quick, and then we'll go to Terrence. Go ahead, Mike.
Is that Buffalo Wild Wing thing true? Because NYJ Matt usually puts up some random stuff, and I guess I found it. Okay, that's fine. Anyway,
I wouldn't know.
was looking. Anyway, Mike. So I was looking at your projections as well, and I see that you have Zonovan Knight being, I guess, to the practice squad while Coleman stays. My only problem is Coleman is 29 now, and our team is getting younger. And to be honest with you, I think Knight brings the same stuff that Coleman does. He can return on special teams. He can be our third back just to change the pace a little from Carter or even Breece Hall. I don't know why we would keep a 29-year-old running back on this team. If we were going for, the Super Bowl or deep in the playoffs, it makes sense to have somebody like Coleman potentially who can, maybe bring in some experience. But I don't think right now we need him. What do you think?
Yeah, so like that's where I think like the fans differ from the coaches a little bit, because I do think the coaches think, that the coaches are trying to make a playoff run this year. That's what they want. I mean, they might have some sort of reasonable goal of like, yeah, if we don't make the playoffs and we win 8-9 games, like that's good season too. But like, if you ask Saleh, you ask these players, what they want to do, they want to be the Bengals of this year. They want to make that unlikely run. And, like I said before, like every year is not guaranteed. If you're a coach, if you're a quarterback, if you're a GM, these years aren't necessarily guaranteed. Douglas has been here for a little bit now. You want to see some sort of turnaround. So that's kind of where I differ on the, I like Zonovan Knight a lot. I just think when it comes down to it, you're probably going to have a couple, maybe Taylor Embry or somebody, running backs coach, bang the table for him at the discussions tomorrow, wherever they have that. Jets facilities, if they have their meeting, everyone, the positional coaches have banged the table for their guys. Knight does offer a lot. I like him a lot, but just with where the numbers are, I can't see them taking more than 3. And I'm actually pretty confident. I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty confident Coleman's going to make this team. I kind of mentioned it before. He does all the things that like Breece Hall and Michael Carter are currently struggling with. Like Breece Hall is struggling with pass protection. Like you could put Coleman in there on a play where you need a pass protector, and you could be confident that like he's going to get the job done. And he's also someone that never fumbles the ball. Like it's like an underrated thing. I think he hasn't fumbled since 2018, because I was like writing about it the other day. I looked that up. So like he's just this reliable veteran. He's been in the system forever. I just can't see them going three running backs. Like maybe they keep Knight as a fourth running back, but I don't think they keep Knight as the third running back, and then that's it. Because then you got two 21-year-old running backs, and you got, I think Carter's like 23. So it's a young man's position for sure, but that's extremely young. And there are just a couple things in the running back game that people don't always look at that you gain with experience. Like pass protection, like just being in the right spot, being composed in a big situation. And maybe Coleman doesn't even always do that on the field. Maybe he teaches Breece Hall that on the sideline. But point is, like, having him around, I think, is going to be important for a coach like Saleh, who does think like we can go to the playoffs this year, and he's not thinking like, okay, I'm going to keep Knight just because he could be good. He could be good this year. Don't get me wrong, but like more likely you're keeping him to keep him long term, right? So like, yeah, you could do that, but like Saleh might not be here long term. So I don't know. I don't think coaches think like that. I think fans think like that. Reporters think like that sometimes, but coaches are thinking this is our 53 right now. This is our best chance to win.
I could say one more. I just wanted to real quick, Justin. If you look at the Texans game too, Tevin Coleman still showed that he had some left in the tank. So I agree that keep a guy like that on the roster.
All right, guys, listen, we have Mike Obermuller here from Heavy on Sports. He's a digital reporter. So we're asking questions, talking about the roster cuts that we're going to be having, going from 53, and the deadline for that is tomorrow at 4 p.m. So we're just going to keep the room going. Just want to give him a plug. Guys, follow him. He's got some great articles, some good tweets out there. I actually saw a lot of his articles while I was on Facebook years ago, and now through Twitter, we're connecting here. So give him a follow, and we'll keep the show going. And thanks again, Mike, for coming on. But right now we're going to introduce Terrence. Terrence is down in Florida. Terrence, welcome to Jet Lounge, and talking with Mike.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. Hey, Mike. Nice to talk to you.
Hey, how you doing, Terrence?
Okay, good. Yeah, Justin, I just wanted to say it's not the food; it's all the beers you've been chugging with Jeremy Ruckert's dad. That's where the weight is, But anyway, two questions, if I can, Mike. The first one is in general. To me, it seems like I think it's going to take a few weeks for this offense to gel, mostly because Zach won't be there for at least a game or two. But also, I just think the offensive line needs a couple of games because there's, with new personnel with Dwayne Brown just starting to get into the groove. But to me, it seems like the defense, has shown some chippiness throughout the training camp and the preseason, like, getting into fights. And also just the pass rush. Now, obviously, it's just the preseason, but it looks, like it just seems like we're very deep at edge, and at least what Salah wants in terms of like the type of guys he wants rushing the quarterback. And I just think that, if we can get to the quarterback, regardless of our limitations elsewhere, I just think the defense might be a good improvement over what it was last year compared to where although we did draft and acquire some offensive talent, I just think the defense might be ahead of the offense in the get-go, and I'm excited about that because we do want an identity. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that. And then to me, I may be one of the few people, but I'm a little upset with Denzel Mims basically going all out finally after like kind of 2.5 years of being here, knowing that the better performance he puts out there yesterday, the better a chance that some team might take a flyer on him. And I'm just, I know it was against the second and third team Giants defense or whatever, but I'm just a little, I just wish whatever he did out there yesterday, he could have bottled and done last year. I know the bad salmon may have been a problem, but it just seemed like he was more focused yesterday than ever he was last year. And, if that was the real Denzel Mims, a motivated guy that's playing for something when he could have been doing that for us all last year, just so that way he can be traded to somebody who might have a interest now because of that performance. I'm just a little upset about that myself, but I just don't know if you've been at training camp and following that. Like, what do you think? More than likely before the cut down tomorrow, he's probably traded to somebody who might be interested. What do you think of those two things that I just mentioned?
Yeah, so with the defense, I guess we'll start there. I was very hyped going into training camp and everything with defense. I actually was really worried after watching the first two performances, but there was such a big difference out there yesterday with Carl Lawson and Quentin Williams out there. Kind of made me take it back a step, and okay, I think my initial gut reaction was right about this defense. The main things I'm looking for is improvement in the areas where they lacked last year. So, like, sorry, just got to make sure my dogs don't kill each other for a second. The areas where they lacked last year, like the run game was really bad. They just had no awareness in the screen. They were too tack-minded sometimes. Like, yes, you want your defensive lineman to attack the backfield, but you can't have zero awareness. You can't just go back there blind and just allow 20-yard screen, and then they do it again the next play because you're just continuously running into the backfield. So I wanted to look at those areas. First two games, you saw a lot of that same stuff, but then, like, wow, what a difference it made having Carl Lawson out there, having Quentin Williams in there. Yeah, some of these young guys are getting better and better. Jermaine Johnson's showing improvement in my eyes. Clemens showing improvement. Gardner's showing improvement. Having Quan Alexander, not in the first team maybe, but like coming in some reserve snaps there yesterday. Like, you could just tell that these guys know what they're doing. Jordan Whitehead is another guy I've been impressed with. In the run game, he's going to help a lot. He's known for that. In his time in Tampa Bay, he was known as a guy that came up into the box, stifled the run. Like, these are all the pieces that the system relies on. So I think last year, one of the reasons why everything just fell apart and like crumbled was because they had these key like pillar pieces of this defense that just were not manned with the right people, and were manned with sometimes like really inexperienced people. So it probably looks a lot better. Like, guys like CJ Mosley look a lot better if you have like Carl Lawson in there, just like disrupting and like also knowing that I can hold the edge and not allow like I can disrupt while also like having awareness, and someone like Whitehead just coming around off the side. Like, I think they'll play Whitehead in the box a lot, single high safety looks, things like that. Or, even in some big packages where they have three safeties maybe, things of that nature, two linebacker sets where he kind of comes up as the third guy in the box. So I'm very excited to see what the defense can do. It's always going to be complementary football. Like, you can't just have the offense trot out a 3-and-out and then expect the defense to just shut them down all game. It's going to be complementary. So hopefully, like, I do think the offense might start a little slow, like you said, but hopefully it's not as too slow. Hopefully, they can at least move the chains a few times if they have a bad drive, at least get, close to midfield, then punt the ball. Don't punt the ball, in your own half of the field. So that's kind of where I think on the defense, it's a little bit of a wait and see, but like the Giants game really kind of pumped me back up in thinking that, if everyone's healthy, like they have the pieces now. Quentin Williams looks like he's going to have like a career year just from the summer he's been having. He's been having just such an insane summer. So in terms of Mims, yeah, like I've never been the biggest Mims fan. I like went back and forth on if they should trade him a few months ago. I'm not the type that wants to trade my draft picks like 2 years after you pick them. But at the same time, like Mims they sort of rub me the wrong way too. Just his attitude. Like a lot of Mims supporters do kind of make those excuses. Like, yeah, he had COVID, he had food poisoning. Like, I don't get me wrong. I'm not discounting any of that stuff. Like, I'm sure he went through a lot, but like he's an athlete. He's a young guy. Like, he had a chance in December, months after all that stuff. and he just never he was getting outplayed by Tarek Black and getting outplayed by like DJ Montgomery. These are guys that are like career practice squatters. So like to me, that always rubbed me the wrong way. Just didn't look like he was like I don't know motivated to like maybe he wants the offense to be crafted around him, and like he doesn't want to have it the other way where he has to like kind of change his game to fit in where he needs to fit in. I don't know what the deal is with Mims. It's been one of the weirdest situations I've ever seen, in all honesty. But like to me, you could see that he's got like yesterday he comes out and he was clearly motivated. Like you said, maybe he thought like if I play well today, like I'm gone, and that's why maybe that's why he's pissed off when Calvin Jackson catches the touchdown and he's like sitting there sulking on the sideline. And maybe he wanted the touchdown. I don't know. Like I'm just speculating on this stuff because it's always very hush hush when it comes to Mims, and the coaching staff never says a bad word about him, publicly at least. So it's weird. But you can't tell me that there's not something going on there. Like you have to be really, really blind Mims supporter to just say like, oh, he just had a bad rap here, and no, he never did anything wrong. Like maybe it's a 50-50. Like maybe the staff never really gave him a good shot, but he also never, to me, like gave that 100% that you want, like to just bend over backward to be the best like team player he could be for this team. So it's probably a little bit of both. I don't think he has a great relationship with Michael Floor and Salah. Like they make it seem like they do, but just reading between the lines, I don't think that they do. That's just my personal opinion though with Mims. I said this earlier, I don't know if you were on the call. I would deal him for the main reason being that I don't think he's going to stay here in 2 years. I think he's going to walk in free agency. So to me, maybe Salah's not thinking about it like this. Maybe he's thinking this year, like I said, with Donovan Knight conversation. But I would be thinking about it like, hey, I got a good young receiver in Calvin Jackson. I got a good young receiver in Irv Charles. Like I could keep one of these guys, or I can keep a fourth tight end, or I could keep Donovan Knight, and these guys could be here for the next 5 years, maybe more. Or with Mims, I could keep him, maybe trade him next week, or maybe just keep him around for the season and he'll be gone at the end of 2023. Maybe he has a slight impact, but he's not going to be our wide receiver 1. He's not even going to be our wide receiver 4. So, best case scenario, that's kind of like a short rental. So I would trade him just based on everything that's happened. The final domino to fall to me was him finally admitting that he's disgruntled and that he wants a trade.
Yeah, I saw the writing on the wall with him last year a little bit. When he had he dropped the short pass in the end zone, and then like the very next play he was got for offensive pass interference, and then he took us out of field goal range with a false start or whatever it was when we were trying to run down the field and score a touchdown. I'm like, this guy's head's not in the game, whether you were physically able to do it or not. Just showed me a lot of preparation. Like you should be doing everything you can to prove your worth as a second-round pick, and then to be requesting for a trade and then balling out and not cheering for your teammate who won. To me, it's like, okay, what team's gonna want that? Like, all right, he's got the talent, but he's not a locker room guy. He's not even rooting for his teammate that's just scored a winning touchdown and should be cheering with him. That goes on your resume too, not just what you do on the field, your character. So.
Yeah, I do think someone will want him, but I just don't know like what the return would be. That's kind of what I would say about it. Like to me, somebody will always want somebody will bypass the waiver system and be like, yeah, I'll give you like a 6th round or a 7th round pick for Mims. Like I guarantee somebody in the league would do that, but like I don't think the Jets want to trade him for that. So it's kind of like will somebody offer? Will Douglas maybe start a bidding war if there's a few people that are interested? I don't know. I don't think they'll get too much for Mims, but I've been wrong before. Douglas got like a crazy return for Chris Herndon, so
yeah.
I'm not going to doubt him.
Mike, I hope you got some Jets gear for the dogs.
Yeah, I got to get my new guy something here, definitely. But yeah, we got a lot of Jets stuff around the house.
Keep the hands going around here. Petey, you're next in Big T. Then we'll get to Justin, defense, and Garrett. So
Thanks, Justin. Mike, thanks for coming on the lounge. Appreciate it. Mike, I hope you don't seem like you're very naive. So I don't think you think that we actually have favorite subways like Happy Jets. So we don't eat that garbage anyway. Anyway,
I was wondering what the subway comment.
Yeah, it's an inside joke, but you got to be dumber than a squirrel to think that. But Mike, thanks again for coming on. And my thing is with I disagree with not you, but with people with Tevin Coleman. The guy has to be kept. Number one, he returns kickoffs and he's very good at it. Number two, the guy you need veterans. You can't just have a young team. You need veterans. You need people to talk in these guys' ear. And I just think with Michael Carter and Breece Hall, Tevin Coleman brings that veteran leadership. Just like, look, the Jets brought in Lakeland Tomlinson, now he's going to mentor, I'm sure, Elijah Vera Tucker, and that's going to, help him get better. So I just think the whole narrative of the team's so young and we're not going anywhere, we need veteran guys to, show these guys how to play in the NFL too.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I've been saying. I mean, like kick return, yes, like he can be good on kick return. People are going to come back and say like, yeah, well, Donovan Knight could do kick return. That's true. So like, I think like the veteran part is more why you keep Coleman. I've said it a few times. Like he just does all the things that like Breece Hall and Carter like haven't really learned yet, like those little finer, kind of grittier area of like being a running back. Like yeah, having just a veteran guy on the sideline is key, and I think Salah's coaching staff is actually a lot bigger on that than people realize. Like the fact that we're even talking about like some beat reporters are keeping Vinny Curry on the roster is like crazy. And that's just because he's this like ultimate veteran presence on the D line. So I don't know if Vinny Curry is going to get kept. I personally wouldn't keep him just because, that's too stacked of a position to keep a guy for that reason. But in the running back room, I think Coleman's proved he could still play. He's done it, a lot more than Vinny Curry, at least, who hasn't played in a year and then hasn't barely played this summer. So like there's a line where you want to draw a line at it. Like you don't want to just keep every veteran just for the sake of it, to me. But in terms of the running back room, I think keeping Coleman's like, I don't want to say a no-brainer, but like I'd say it's like really like to me there's like I'd say like 98% chance he gets kept. Like maybe I'm gonna look really foolish if he doesn't, but I just haven't heard anything to suggest that he's gonna get cut. And he also barely took any like reps during the preseason, which is usually a good sign that, this guy's not going anywhere. Like he took a few yesterday. He looked good. He like had like, I think like a 9-yard run one time, so like every time he gets chances, he looks good. And then they just kind of pull him out and say, all right, well, Michael P. Ryan, like Donovan Knight, you guys can compete. Ty Johnson, you guys can compete for this, like maybe if there is one, fourth running back role. So that's kind of where I think it is. I think there's like 3 locks at running back. And then you have a situation where I call it the Royal Rumble. Like it's like wide receiver versus tight end versus running back. And there's going to be one like extra playmaker that gets chosen. And I actually think that's where Donovan Knight's competing. I think he's competing against a guy like Mims or a guy like Calvin Jackson or a guy like Lawrence Cager, more so than he is against Coleman.
Good morning, Big T. Welcome to Jet Lounge. What's up, Big T?
What's good, Justin? What's good, Jet Lounge family? Petey, Happy, Justin, Garrett. What's up, Mike? How you doing, brother?
What's up, bro?
Chilling. I guess on the latter, what you just said, the players that are fighting for the last spots or whatever, I probably would tend to go to the player that's the most versatile, that probably can do the most. It's a possibility that they would check those boxes and take one of them or whatever. As far as the running backs, that position usually is the easiest to transition from college because of the fact, pretty much you're just running through gaps or whatever. The one that I can agree with is obviously blocking. That's very key as far as protecting the quarterback and being able to block and chip, and then obviously going on a route or whatever. So that's really important. But I do think that the running back position from football, when any position in football, is probably the easiest to transition. So I think we're okay with that, with the players that we're probably going to keep. Denzel Mims, it is what it is.
I'm glad he's motivated. You know what I'm saying? I'm glad he's stepping up or whatever. I tend to sway to I want to keep him because of the fact everyone knows, I mentioned this a lot. Football is a game of attrition, and he's going to play a key role some way, somehow in a game or whatever. You say, he's not going to be a wide receiver number 4 or 5 or whatever. I disagree with that. Someone gets hurt. Elijah gets banged up. A wide rookie gets banged up, whatever. He can easily be thrusted into the number 3, the number 2 wide receiver because someone has gotten banged up for a game or two. So that's the reason why I tend to wait because of the fact that he's very talented. I do like a motivated player or whatever. Fine. Let's say we move him for depth in the offensive line or whatever, or we get more than what we think we're going to get for him, then so be it or whatever because there's no more going against JD. JD is top. He's one of the top GMs, and he's probably going to talk somebody into giving him more or whatever. But let's say he does come and he plays a key role in the Jets and we do damage or whatever, stuff like that. He's still under us. Now he becomes a major trade asset during the offseason or during the season. So that's why I want to keep him. But due to the fact of the war of attrition, he's going to play a key role. So that's why I disagree with you on that. Special teams, he's not where we want him to be, but he's a lot better than he was because of the fact that he needs to be, because that came out of Salah's mouth. So if he needs to play some, he's probably going to have no choice but to play some. But I think if we put him on there, now you're going to have a second-round pick, and let's say comes in, that's your 4th wide receiver on a 4 wide receiver set. You have a depth 3rd, 4th, whatever DB, a linebacker on him. Jets could key in on that, and they can and he can have some big games if the situation merits it. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna force feed him because you don't have to force feed him. It depends on the scheme. It depends on how the game is going, and it depends who's on him. So I do believe we have a lot of depth. I do believe we have a lot of really good problems that we haven't had in over 10 years. So I think the Jets are loaded, and that's obviously a check to JD bringing in. The Jets have 4 players that have been claimed off of waivers, the most in the league. That tells you exactly that the Jets are going the right way because teams are claiming our players because of the fact of how they're playing, how we're training them, how we're developing them, and people's like, you know what? Yeah, they look good over there. Let's bring them over there. So we haven't had that, boys, for a long time. And we're going to be making some really key, hard decisions. But we got to take the best 53, and we're going to go out there and try to be 1-0 against the Ravens. Right, my man, Justin?
Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah, definitely great point there at the end. Like that's like, that's kind of how you measure, your organization versus others, right? Like, do people want the players that you can't keep? I think that you're going to see a lot of Jets get claimed this week, even. Unfortunately, like there are probably going to be some guys, like maybe a tight end that we get rid of, probably get claimed. Pass rusher that we get rid of, like maybe Jabari Zuniga will get claimed by somebody. He's a former 3rd-round pick that's looked good this year. Maybe Bradley and someone like that. Yeah, I think there's going to be a few guys that get claimed. Agree with you on the run game, the running back. You said that at the beginning that, it's always the easiest to transition to the NFL. It's definitely true. Those guys can contribute right away. It's also kind of why I don't think Knight's going to get claimed because there are a lot of guys, similar to him around the league. I also cover the Chiefs, and the Chiefs have a stacked running back room. They got probably 3 or 4 guys that start a couple weeks ago could have made most NFL rosters, probably get cut too. So running back position, maybe an injury happens, maybe somebody thinks they need an extra running back and they go after a guy like Knight. But I just think there's a lot of people that can do those sort of things, and you're going to see other positions get claimed rather than necessarily running back. Could be wrong about that, but that's kind of my gut feeling, and also what I've been hearing just from other people that are close to the team, that they kind of think that he could slip through. Then on all the Mims stuff, I think, like I said with Irv Charles, someone asked about Irv Charles. I like Irv Charles a lot, but I still think it's more likely that Denzel Mims is here this year than another big guy, another big, like physically big wide receiver like Charles. Just basically because the Jets don't want to give him away for nothing, and you're running out of time to trade him. So unless quickly you're on the phones all night tonight and you get a couple teams bidding against each other, that's probably the best chance to see Mims leaving. Otherwise, like, he might stick around for a little bit, maybe get traded later in the season. Maybe he buys in and he doesn't get traded. But like, to me, that's the thing you got to figure out with Mims. Like, is he going to buy in? Like, he played great yesterday, but did he play great because he wanted to get traded, or did he play great because he finally realized, like, all right, this is my last opportunity to prove something here in New York? Like, I think it's right now. I think it's the former. Like, I think he played great because he thought he might have a chance to get out if he played great. If you're a Jets fan, like, that's at least the way I think about it. Like, you want him to play great because he wants to be in New York. Like, you want him to say to himself, like, I want Corey Davis's job next year. I want this wide receiver core to be me, Garrett Wilson, and Elijah Moore, and then you're set. Like, yeah, that's a great theory, and would love for that to happen. I think most Jets fans would be happy if that happened. Let's say Mims turned his game around and that ends up being your trio for a long time. Like, can't complain with that, but just with the way things have gone, it's hard to see him buying in is the best way to put it. Like, it's hard to see it. To me, it looks like he's mentally already moved on. So if he's going to be mentally moved on, I wouldn't want to keep him over a talented rookie because that talented rookie can help you later. So
Yeah,
I do see your point, though. You're kind of making the same point I made earlier with Tevin Coleman. Like, Mims can help now, maybe more so than a younger receiver. So I get that. But you have to really be confident about his mental makeup right now.
yeah. Let's keep it the hands. We got Justin, then Garrett, then Lee John. So go ahead, Justin.
Hey, Mike, how you doing? From one
Yeah.
playoff team to another, Mike. Let me ask you, do you feel that we can go 10-7, and then I guarantee you, when we bust the Miami Flippers this year, both games, do you think that we can win both games against them this year, please? Can you elaborate on that? Oh, by the way,
Yes.
if you don't know who the Miami Flippers are, that's the Miami Dolphins.
I think I put two and two together on that one. I like that nickname. I haven't heard that one yet. Yeah, the optimist in me, like I was talking to a couple other guys a few weeks ago. The optimist in me, First and 10 podcast. I was trying to think of the name in my head real quick. The optimist in me says 9 is like a good mark for them to aspire to. Obviously, you'd love to get to 10 wins. Schedule is a little tough early. I'm really interested to see how the offensive line like comes together this first couple weeks. How the defense looks when everyone's out there. I thought it looked great yesterday, but how will it look against a better team? The Giants really aren't that great of a team. Probably one of the worst teams in the league this year. So, like, I am interested to see against a team like the Ravens, who to me are a playoff contender. Maybe even if things go well for them, maybe even a Super Bowl contender. If Lamar Jackson has a big year, like, I want to see how they look against a team like that week 1. Like, I still have them losing that game. The only reason I would think they could win it is just like the whole 9-11, just first home game and just being, crazy amped up. I do think the Jets will come out amped up and play a very competitive game, but I also have a feeling that like the Ravens are going to be really amped up. They're coming off a really bad year. They're coming off a year where, Lamar got hurt. Lamar's playing for a contract right now. He's betting on himself. I think he's going to be super motivated. I think the Jets struggle with rushing quarterbacks. We saw that with Jalen Hurts a little bit. So it's not the greatest matchup for week 1. Like, I was hoping for something a little different week 1 when the schedule came out, but at the same time, you play who's on the schedule. 10 wins not impossible. The end of the season is very favorable. You got to push through these early weeks. Got to get the offensive line, cohesive a little bit. Sorry, I'm like blanking on the second question. You remind me of the second part of the question?
Beating
Oh,
the
the
Dolphins,
flippers. The
the
flippers, yes. Yeah.
Flippers. Correct,
Yeah,
correct.
sorry about that.
But
So
I'll give you
go ahead.
something real quick. I think we beat Baltimore 27-17, week one.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be rooting for that for sure. But again, I always try to answer some of these like fan in me, then answer like also the reporter in me. So like the reporter in me still thinks Baltimore probably, but I do think the Jets are going to play really well and look a lot better than they have in years past. Like even with Flacco out there, I think they could move the ball pretty well, and defense will be like night and day, hopefully different. For the flippers, yeah, I'm not as like high on them as some people are. I think Tua is not like the answer at quarterback. I think he's kind of like how we were with Darnold for the last few years, where before last year, where they're kind of like afraid to move on from Tua because they basically sold the fan base that he was a savior. Very similar to like the whole like suck for Sam. They had tank for Tua and all that. So I kind of think they're afraid to move on from him, but really don't think he's the answer long term. It's really a lot of their season is going to come down to him. Like on paper, they have a good looking defense. On paper, they have good looking set of playmakers. They got a lot of speed. Not only with Hill and Waddle, but they got some running backs that are really fast, like Mostert. So got a lot of speed. They're definitely trying to, blow defenses away with that speed and just probably trying to keep it easy on Tua. But their offensive line has been shaky over the years. They didn't really. They brought in a couple pieces there, but they didn't really like to me the Jets offensive line is a lot better than the Dolphins offensive line. Like so, if you could win like the trench battle, and if guys like Sauce are as good as they've looked, and you have a guy like DJ Reed stay healthy, which is I think is a big thing for me, like having him stay healthy this year for the Jets. I think you could hang with those wide receivers, and I don't see any reason why you can't beat the Dolphins. Like I would say you have to beat them at least once, and then maybe beat them twice. The team that I think like you have an easier chance of beating 2 times is actually New England. Surprisingly, with all the history behind it, but we haven't beaten them in like I forget how long, like some ungodly amount of years. But I actually think you have to beat New England at least once. You have to beat Miami at least once, and then you could maybe talk about beating the Patriots twice. And then depending with Miami, I'll say it really depends on like how the injuries will look. Like if you go into that Miami game, like no DJ Reed, like no somebody else on the defensive side, and they have like all their pieces. They have Tyreek Hill, they have Mike Gesicki, they have Waddle, and all those guys. Like it's going to be really hard to keep up with them. Like Jets need to stay healthy. That's always going to be a key thing. But if they could stay healthy, maybe who knows? Maybe Miami's missing a guy or something. Like I don't see any reason why you can't beat them twice. I don't think they're like some powerhouse team, So that's
Hey Mike, one last thing. When we talk about Tua, his nickname is 2 and 15. That's what we call
all right,
2 and 15, all right?
all right. I won't make that mistake again.
Just got Mike calling them the flippers. I love it. All the Dolphins fans that are listening, they will appreciate you now, Just. Garrett, go ahead, Garrett.
Hey, Justin. Thanks.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, real quick, just to touch on the Denzel Mims thing. I've always thought since he got drafted that New York was too big for him. It just doesn't seem like a personality fit, and he would do better elsewhere. I saw Connor Hughes say he did a report on him, and he just kind of shut down when he wanted to involve some of his family members and stuff like that, which I'm not saying isn't understandable, but he comes off as more closed off and not as open. So that's my thoughts on him. What I wanted to ask you was, don't you think with Strevler that he deserves not only to make this team, but it would be good for the locker room, not only just the story of him coming up and being a camp arm to making the team, but that it pretty much shows anybody in there that, you put in the work, you can make the team. He's played really well in all his opportunities. And I don't even care that it's with the third or fourth string because we're asking him to be the third string quarterback, not the starting quarterback. I just think he's earned it. He's deserved it. He brings the energy. I mean, at the end of that game, when everybody was going nuts, Zach up in the booth was going nuts. The entire team ran on the field. He was making me pumped up at home watching the game. Just his energy. I just think he brings a different factor than Mike White.
Yeah. So like I guess I'll go to the Mims stuff first. Like I see what you're saying. He's very like kind of low key guy. Like, you hear him talk in interviews. He's he's actually pretty soft spoken and mellow guy for the most part. He doesn't really like have a lot of like fire or passion to him, which some people maybe wouldn't like to hear that because like you kind of want athletes sometimes to have that. So I could see that. I've never, there's no like tangible way I could answer that one way or the other. Like, I don't know Denzel Mims personally. I'm not a beat reporter, so like I'm not there like talking to him, I would say that there could be some merit to that. Like maybe he wants to go to a place like where he's from, where he played college, like Texas and all that, with a little bit more low key spotlight. I could see it. Like I think it was Marty Lyons said the other day, like that if he's requesting a trade now, like he's backed him up in the past, but like if he's requesting a trade now, like then New York maybe is too big for him. So you're not the first person to kind of point that out. I just don't know. Me personally, I'm probably not the right person to answer that. In terms of Strebler, like I agree with you. I think he fits the team better, and they probably should have given it more of a real look one way or the other. Like a real look at like third string. But I think he also he basically took the coaching staff by surprise in a way. Like they brought him in as a camp arm, I think, and like best case scenario, like a practice squad guy, like, hey, if he surprises, like maybe he could be our fourth arm on the practice squad. Like that's kind of my thinking of when they brought him in, what they were thinking about. And then he just comes out and like Salah said he had the best one of the best preseasons of all time. So like I think he surprised the coaching staff. And the only problem with that is like they really like the quarterbacks that they have. So it kind of puts them in a tough spot where it's a good problem to have, but I don't think they ever anticipated he would be this good and like the fan base would love him this much. So I don't think he'll stay. I get your point about, he might stay on the practice squad. I shouldn't say I don't think he'll stay, but I don't think he'll stay on the active roster. I do get your point, but at the same time, I just think they like Flacco and White too much. Even if, Strebler is the more similar, future, like kind of like Zach Wilson style quarterback, good Zach Wilson backup maybe if Flacco like retires next year or something like that. But I just don't see it.
And I'll throw this in there real quick. I mean, granted, we don't know what could happen, but if they get a trade offer for Mike White, I mean, I feel like they'd be a lot more comfortable taking it with the cherry on top. It's not much money, but they'd save, over $1 million on the cap as well. But I don't know. I just think if I just think he deserves to make the team. That's what it comes down to. And I think it would be a shame to have a player do everything he was asked, play lights out, and then it was already predetermined who was going to win the job.
Yeah, I mean, there's two ways of looking at it. I guess like that's one way to look at it. Another way is like we don't think of the practice squad always as much, as fans or as whatever people covering the team. But like, to these guys, a practice squad job is a job. It's income. It's that means something. You're part of the team. You're practicing every day with them. Like it is more important, I think, to players than it is to coaches. Also, like Strebler, when you're auditioning for the Jets, you're also auditioning for 31 other teams. So, like, if he came out there and he won like a backup role with the Seahawks or like with the Carolina Panthers, like Darnold just got hurt, if he won like a backup role somewhere like that, like that's big for him, and he'll never like part of breeding those job opportunities is part of being like a good organization. And, no one's ever going to blame Salah for like, hey, you didn't give me a real chance. Like Seattle gave me a chance, like they'll be like, dude, like you gave me an opportunity and like, yeah, I went out and seized it, but you gave me the opportunity to prove myself. Like, thank you for that. Like now I have a career that got kickstarted. So like, there are two ways to look at it. I don't think Strevler would be upset if the Jets like told him like, hey man, like we love everything you did. Appreciate everything you did for us, but like we just can't keep you. We have kind of three guys that we really like here. But hey, I'm gonna give you like a great recommendation if you get, claimed or something. Or hey, maybe we'll flip you for a pick. I heard someone, I said earlier, somebody suggested that they flip Strebler for like a 7th or a 6th round pick. Like White, you could do that too. Sure, why not? I'd love to flip White and then keep Strebler personally, but you do got to think about it like that sometimes too. Like, yeah, maybe this guy won't succeed in New York, and that sucks for us. But like at the same time, like he'll be very happy if he gets a job from this, and I'm sure he'll be very thankful to Robert Saleh or whoever brought him in.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. I mean, from a player aspect, good. He would make his team and get paid. I'm happy for him. And I think that it would, it says something like you said about the team developing players, and the top drafted free agents want to come here because they know they'll get a shot. So I do agree with what you're saying. I just want him on the team.
Yeah, I hear you. I do too. For the record, I if it was me picking, I would pick him.
All right, guys. We got Lee John asked one more question for Mike because I think Mike's going to get going, and we're going to do a hard stop as soon as we get through this. So go ahead, Lee.
What's up?
Good morning, man.
How you doing? I think it's really amazing that for the sake of a 6th round receiver or receiver on the roster, we're going to try and create an important never score a punt, or you never score a touchdown on a punt return. The guy's a great freaking kickoff specialist. Why don't we value that? Why would we keep a guy like Denzel Mims for that value when I'm sure there's many other guys in the NFL that do that as like a specialty? And not that I'm saying he can't do it, but I'm saying you're devaluing your team for a guy that's never going to play unless 3 guys get hurt. And when he plays, I mean, he drops the ball, he runs wrong routes. He played, especially last year, I felt like he played with no heart. And you know what? That doesn't, on a Bill Belichick team, that player gets cut. Aaron Dobson got cut. That's who he reminds me of. So I would like to move on from him, especially, when you're watching all these other receivers make plays. Why can't he make plays? And, the Strebler conundrum is interesting because I think if Zach Wilson doesn't get hurt, I don't think this team keeps Joe Flacco. But now Zach Wilson's hurt. Flacco's the starter. It's very, very interesting. So we will probably lose Strebler to the practice squad. Maybe someone might pick him up as a QB3 in an emergency. But you know what? It's been a super healthy year. I think the 49ers wanted to get rid of Garoppolo, and nobody got hurt. Nobody got hurt. So they didn't get what they wanted, and he's still on the 49ers. I don't think quarterbacks are as needy as people thought they'd be coming up into the year. So I don't know. I mean, would you get rid of Mike White? I would hate to get rid of Mike White. I think he comes in and he can do a job as a backup. The idea is that Zach Wilson's the franchise quarterback. So it really does suck, especially for the 53 man, that he got hurt, because now we have to figure out what we're going to do with Flacco. We were comfortable last year not having Flacco going into the year. So why has that changed this year when, Zach Wilson should be a better quarterback? So I don't know. It's an interesting conversation, especially how great, Strebler played. And honestly, man, I didn't watch a single play that Strebler had. I watched the first string. As soon as Clemens comes out, I don't watch the Jets on preseason. And that's not because I don't love the team. It's because it's not the team that they're going up against. These guys, the guys that Strebler was going up against, especially week 1 and week 3. I don't even know if those guys sniffed the field on game day, any of them. So yeah, he did great, but it's hard to, it's really hard to base off of what, and that's the thing.
Yeah. So like I guess I'll go with like the Mims stuff first. Yeah, like I think like this is a big moment, like kind of like a pivotal moment for like Robert Saleh in my eyes. Like you basically you have this situation that maybe you haven't handled the best, but also the player has not, in my opinion, has not bought in to what you're building. And like Salah's made all these points about culture and creating that culture and changing everything around. And like if you like in some ways, if you don't have a guarantee that Mims is bought in, like maybe behind the scenes, or if you don't have like a good conversation with him before tomorrow, like I just can't see how you can keep him and not like I said earlier in the call, like not expect him to walk on you in 2 years. And like you're talking, someone was saying, forget the name, sorry. Someone was saying like Strevler played his way, into deserving a spot. And if you are going to be that type of organization that gives roles to players that earned it, and that's how you want to that's how you want your culture to be, and you want players to buy in and think like the Jets can win the Super Bowl, the Jets can turn things around. Like Mims has not done any of that. He hasn't bought in. He hasn't had that mentality. So like to me, like this is a big moment for Saleh and Douglas to say, hey, Ashton Davis too, put him in the same mix. Like, yeah, we could keep these guys because we drafted him. Or we could say, you know what? We screwed up. We drafted the wrong guy. We're going to ditch him and go with a guy that is here hopefully to stay. And
yeah,
and he's guaranteed money, Mims. 5 times the amount of money that Cage would be worth. He's a lot more money. You want to trade the money if they're not performing.
Yeah, and not only that, like I always bring up the Chiefs because I also cover the Chiefs, so it's just like an easy, natural thing for me to bring up. Also, the Chiefs are honestly probably the greatest model of efficiency right now around the NFL. Like they've been to the AFC championship game 4 straight years. Sorry if I'm getting out of breath a little bit. I'm like walking my dogs in my hilly ass neighborhood, but they're a model of efficiency. Like you want to like look at them and say like, okay, the Chiefs are doing something right. It's not just because of Patrick Mahomes. Like they have a great staff, they have a great GM, they have a great coach. It's like you want to look at them and say, what do they do that we don't do? And just looking at last year, the Chiefs cut like 2 of their draft picks last year. And the Chiefs aren't a bad drafting team. Like they had an insanely good draft this year, for example. Like they like cut Kane Doa last year, pass rusher, Joshua Kane Doa. And they also cut Cornell Powell, like a wide receiver. These weren't second-round picks, don't get me wrong. But they were not 7th-round picks either. I think they were like 4th round, 5th round type guys, if I remember right. So, like, you got to be willing to make the hard choices sometimes. And you got to be willing to say, like Mims hasn't just been here for 1 year. He's been here for 3 years, So, like you got to be willing to say, like, hey, maybe we got this one wrong, and you know what? Maybe the best move is to move on, give this role to somebody that like was really earned it, and it really wants to be here for the next 5 years. I'm not sure if there was another question there that I missed, but feel free to jump in.
Oh yeah, the Strevler. Not for nothing. Mims has 0 touchdowns in 2 years, but Strevler is. Do you feel like the play that he had, like the people that he was playing against competition wise?
Oh yeah.
Are
Yep.
I
remember
what
that.
would he do? I just wish that he had a little bit more of an opportunity. If you're going to keep the guy, put him in with the 2s, for like 2 drops. But they never really put him in with anybody. But the guys that were already going to get cut.
Yeah. So yeah. No, sorry, you refreshed my memory. Yeah. So like Strevler, like I said few minutes ago, like I think he kind of surprised the staff. They looked at him as like a camp arm that was only gonna play like so that other guys didn't have to play like key minutes. Like you don't want Zach Wilson out there all game in the preseason. You don't want necessarily Flacco out there all game because he's an older guy. So like, I think like they looked at him like differently, and then he like surprised them and was like, kind of took the world by storm. In that sense, like. Yeah, he's never going to get those second team reps, like because honestly, the Jets probably didn't see him as a guy that was ever going to make the active roster. So, like, why are you going to give those reps to a guy that's not going to make it? I still don't think he will make the active roster. So, like, fans may like, what they've seen from Strevler. I liked what I saw from Strevler. But, the fact that he's not getting those reps over Mike White, even yesterday, kind of shows you, like, where they're leaning and that this isn't really, like, as much of a roster battle as some people think it is. I don't personally think White's going anywhere, even in a trade. Like, it sounds nice, especially if you're not like a big Mike White fan. I know it's like he's like a split fan base type of thing. Like, some people love him, some people hate him. I don't think he's going anywhere this year. Like, maybe during the season someone gets traded. You also got to consider if Flacco is not a young guy. Like, is he really going to play more than like one more year? Like, how many more years is he going to play? So, if you're thinking long term, like, maybe this guy that you're keeping, whether it's White or Strevler, maybe they're your future backup. So, they might be more important than just a third stringer down the line. So, a lot of things to consider. I think they like Mike White. I think they consider him like the perfect long-term backup. And there's a reason why they haven't traded him yet,
All right, guys, we're going to be wrapping it up soon. Defense is in here with his hand up. We're going to let him close out the questions with Mike Obermuller from Heavy.com. Sorry if I keep destroying your name, Mike.
No, yeah, you're pretty much on it, Mike Obermuller.
Yeah, follow him. He's got his page over here, and I think he brings a lot of articles that I've seen on other social media outlets. So, Mike, if you want to plug yourself, go ahead.
I was going to say, type Heavy on Jets into Google. First thing that'll come up, you type Heavy on Jets into Google, is myself and Boyd Green, Paul Esden Jr., both writing articles on there. I also write for Heavy on Chiefs, but I don't expect you guys to necessarily read that unless you're secretly a Chiefs fan.
All right, cool. So go ahead, defense. Good morning.
Good morning, y'all. And I don't really have a question. It's just something I mentioned earlier today. Is I don't understand preseason the way fan bases look at it, especially ours. Because just take Denzel Mims for example. If he did nothing this preseason, it would have been the fan bases. We would have been saying, "Oh, he can't do anything against fourth stringers," right? But when he does play good, oh, it was just against fourth stringers. So it's like these players amongst our fan base, they're in lose-lose situations. They can't have a good game because it's fourth stringers. And God forbid they don't have a good game, they suck against fourth stringers, right? So with Denzel Mims, he had a phenomenal offseason this year. He was making unbelievable catches throughout OTAs, training camp. I followed his entire offseason. We all did, right? He's been spectacular, right? He made in preseason, 2 mistakes, like a false start or illegal motion and a drop pass. But if preseason means anything at all, Denzel Mims was the best wide receiver, not just yesterday, but throughout the whole preseason in catches and receiving yards. He got himself a touchdown. He has a 70-something% catch rate percentage, right? And then we like to harp on these kids after their first 2 years. Like, we don't even have the patience to let these kids develop for 3 years. Every kid is in a different situation, right? But my favorite running back as a kid was Adrian Morrell before Curtis Martin. He did absolutely nothing in his first 2 years, but in his third year, he had dang near 1,000 scrimmage yards. You could take 3 of our favorite wide receivers, all different situations, but Quincy Enunwa, Santana Moss, and Jericho Cotchery, they did nothing in their first 2 years, other than Santana Moss on special teams. He got hurt in the second year, but they did nothing, right? You look at Victor Green, our greatest safety in franchise history. He did nothing in his first 2 years, but he broke out to 100 tackles in his third year. So at the end of the day, man, I'm just a strong believer. I'm not talking like Mike, whatever, James Morgan type of crap, where there's no talent at all. You get rid of those guys in their rookie second year, just get rid of them. But kids like Denzel Mims, man, I'm not going to forget what I seen as a rookie, right? Because of his situation last year as a rookie. I've said this multiple times, but he was one of 7 wide receivers in NFL history to have his first 6 games of over 40 yards. And they weren't just 40 yards. They were 50, 60, 70-yard games, right? So his first 6 games, he showed he's talented. So last year, man, it's not an excuse. It's reality. I've heard Coach Salah speak on it, how much weight this kid lost. He lost 25, almost 30 pounds. He had COVID. He was just behind the 8 ball, learning a new playbook. Second year in a row. I'm not quitting on this kid, man, and I don't think the Jets are going to quit on him either. He might have demanded a trade. That's just, to me, it's his competitive nature. Put ourselves in this situation. He's this great talent at Baylor. He flashes as a rookie, and now he's just buried under the depth chart. But last night, long story short, yesterday, I think he flourished, man. He had a lot of pressure that he put on himself, and he could have cracked under that pressure. But what was this? I just think he balled out, man. And I think it's just wrong to quit on talented kids, not scrub kids, but talented kids before their third year. If we would have quit, and Braxton Berrios, he made the All-Pro as a kick returner last year, right? Look, his first 2 years in the league, he had like 100 kick return yards. But you gave that kid a chance in his third year, and look what he did, man. None of us knew who Braxton Berrios was before last year. So that's all I want to say, man. I think our fan base, we've lost for so long that we're losing patience. We're forgetting about what development is all about. And I don't think it's just right to quit. And even Aston Davis, man, I just really want to see what Denzel Mims and Aston Davis could do this year. Third year, if they don't get it done, get rid of them. But injuries happen in football, and God forbid something happens to any of our top 3 wide receivers. I think we might need Denzel Mims.
Yeah, I feel you with him putting up the stats, the defense. I do. I just don't like to see somebody ask for a trade and then they finally put up 100 yards. Then they finally score a touchdown. It's just like, dude, where were you? Why weren't you on the sidelines running over to your teammate who scored the touchdown? You want the limelight. Robert Saleh was being told by referees to stay off the field. This guy's a guy who you should be, eat, sleep, and breathing with right now with the position. You didn't give a crap that he won a touchdown after he got a game-winning touchdown. To me, that shows a little bit of character issue, if you ask me. That he just wants it to be about him, in my opinion. So, I mean, developmental, fine, but I'd rather see the kid that scored 2 winning touchdowns make the team, who's got a future here that we might already not know about. That's my opinion. I'm not talking crap on him, but it's not my guy.
Yeah, and I'll push back a tiny bit.
What do you always say?
What's that?
What do you always say? Your best ability is what?
Your best ability is your availability. Mims has improved that.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, not like with closing remarks from me. Like, I'll push back a little bit on. I've followed the entire offseason, from every day, like practice, probably every single tweet you could look at. I've seen every single report. The one thing I haven't, done is I wasn't at the stuff as much in person as maybe some diehard fans. But all in all, I would say I'm a pretty good judge of it. I would not say Mims has been the best receiver in training camp this year. He's had moments. He's had like spectacular plays. He's had practices where he doesn't even have a catch. So yes, part of that is that he's not out there all the time. Don't get me wrong, but I'd say Elijah Moore and Tyler Conklin as a tight end have been the best 2 pass catchers by far. I don't even think it's been very close on that. And then you got guys like Garrett Wilson that have had days. You've got guys like Berrios who have had good days. You got even Corey Davis has had a really nice spring. He's had a lot of touchdowns. So it's been kind of a balanced year, I would say. Mims has definitely had his days. But yeah, so have other guys. Even Jeff Smith has had some good days. So it's kind of a tough one there. If the room wasn't so deep, I would say 100%. Develop them, keep them. It's just the fact that the room is so deep that you could be losing somebody, that's potentially a good piece for 5 years. That's what makes it like really tricky for me. So that's why I say, like, do you want, if you do keep Mims, I'm okay with that, but you have to basically have that talk with him and have to tell him, like, hey, like, we want you here and we need you to buy in. And I'm sure they've had that conversation with him before, but you probably got to have it again before tomorrow if that's your plan, because otherwise I think you're making a mistake just keeping him there and keeping him buried and keeping him disgruntled. And to me, that never ends up well.
And then my last question, Mike, because I know y'all wrapping up the show, is with Tevin Coleman, right? We all harp over Denzel Mims, his first 2 years, no touchdowns, right? He has no touchdowns and he's missed some games. But what about Tevin Coleman? His last 2 years, he missed, I think, 8 games. The year before last year, no touchdowns. And then last year, I think he missed 6 games, no touchdowns. And last year, even without Breece Hall in the mix, he's almost 30. He's turning 30 years old this year. He's 29. And last year he had like a whopping 300 yards from scrimmage. He did nothing for us, right? So if we're going to be so critical over developing kids like Denzel Mims, who's done nothing in his first 2 years, no touchdowns, missed games because of injury, a sickness. Well, then what about Tevin Coleman, about to be 30 years old, no touchdowns in his past 2 years, a whopping 300 yards last year without Brees Hall there. You know what I mean? So I think you got to get rid of Tevin Coleman and you got to go with Bam. Bam might have a bright future. I'm at Florida State, ACC fan. This kid was a little animal, man. And you could see what Michael Carter played North Carolina, what he thought about this kid, Bam. He loves him. So I think it'd be a big mistake to like harp over Denzel Mims first 2 years, but then just give Tevin Coleman a free pass. Like, it's okay he's got 0 touchdowns in the last 2 years. It's okay he's missed like 15 games or like 13 games in the past 2 years. I think it's like just a little hypocritical. You know, I think you got to get rid of Coleman and go with Bam.
Yeah, the only thing I'd say with that is, like, I see what you're saying. You know, I even kind of pointed out earlier, like, you know, I kind of have the opposite stance on those two. Like, one, I'd rather go with the vet. One area, I'd rather go, you know, with the younger guy. The big difference to me is that, like, Tevin Coleman has 100% fully bought in to what they're, you know, what they want to do. He's completely okay with being a role player. Now, if you like I said, if you have a conversation with Mims and you determine that he's okay with being a role player, because that's what he's going to be in this offense. He's never going to be like, you know, Jamar Chase. He's going to be a role player, even at his best. Even if he's performing well, he's alongside Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson. You know, that's a trio of guys. So, like, even at his best, he's somewhat of a role player. You know, a guy like Coleman has been doing that his whole career. He's completely okay with that. He knows what his role is. He's not scoring, you know, he's not putting up 700 yards because he's not getting that many carries. He had a good clip last year, actually. He had a good yards per carry clip. So it's a little bit different. Like, you know, again, I would keep Mims. I'd be okay with keeping Mims, but you have to, like, make that determination. Like, hey, is he finally okay with his role? Yeah, he could be our wide receiver 5 over Jeff Smith. I'm not like a huge Jeff Smith fan. I think that could easily be Mims could step into that role if he starts playing well. And then maybe even if someone gets hurt, maybe he's, in the starting lineup, maybe he's getting meaningful snaps. You never know. But, the point is, can he buy in and say, like, I'm willing to do that right now and, for the long-term goal? And, we'll see. I don't know if he is. Like, that's kind of the problem is that, like, he has to be willing to do it. With Coleman's willing to do that. He's never had any issues with that. So a little bit different, but that's all.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, guys. With that, I'm going to wrap up the show. I appreciate you coming in, Mike, and talking it up with the fans. I appreciate all you guys coming in here and being able to talk with us on this beautiful Monday morning. Just up in the Jumbotron, I'll leave the room open for a little bit. Up top, we have some things going on. We're doing the week 1 at the hangar. That's sold out, but we do have a tailgate going on for that. Mike, I hope you can come out to the game. If you are, meet up with us.
All right.
Also, week 2, we're doing a signing with a book signing for Coach Mike Westhoff. And also, we're going to do another signing with a player with John Franklin Myers on the 10th down by me down the shore. So we got some cool stuff going on, and we just released a cool T-shirt. Petey has an awesome show tonight with Rob Carpenter as a guest. So, yeah, check out the Jet Lounge. Everybody in the room, follow each other. Definitely give Mike a follow. And, Mike, thank you so much again for coming on and taking the time out of your day.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, very fun. Thanks for everyone that came in. Good questions, really good questions. This is always, one of the most passionate fan bases, if not the most in the, in the entire world. So, like, that makes this fun for me, conversing with everyone and debating things. So appreciate that. Hope to, I'll try and let you guys know, Justin and Benny, like, I'll try and let you guys know, like, when I'm going to games. Can't go to every game just because of my job doesn't allow it. I have to be around usually to do some work, but yeah, but I'll let you guys know. I'm probably gonna hit a few, so I'll talk to you on the side about that. And just had a blast. And thanks for having me on, everyone.
Yeah, great. Love to see you in person, meet you. Like Staten Island bar that we're doing, a couple of different events with some of the players and past and present. So we'll get together soon and maybe a podcast live event or something like that. But we'll be in touch, Mike. Thanks so much for coming on.
All right, appreciate it.
All right, guys. With that being said, everybody give a little waving emoji to Mike. Thanks for coming in, and I appreciate you guys. And don't forget tonight, PD will be on with Tanad. They got a special guest on there tonight. Rob Carpenter will be in there, so check that out. And like I said, me and Benny just been talking. We've been helping design a couple more shirts. There's the Klecko one that Pat Dunn had put up there. There's a Sauce Garden shirt. There's a No Fly Zone up there. We're starting to branch out with some more ideas with our T-shirts. So check out that stuff. And like I said, Happy Dad is sponsoring us with U Stadium for the tailgate event that we're looking putting out a lot. There'll be an email coming out to everybody who subscribes to our email. If you any questions about it, just DM me or Benny or somebody on the Jet Lounge team. And, we'll answer any questions we got for you. So follow each other and enjoy your day.